Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. To my right here, we have the leader of the cult, Shadow the Night Owl. We are rocking and rolling. This is our second stream of the day. We did a day stream earlier, and we're back again for double dips. We're living the dream over here, D. How about you? So tonight, we got a couple of videos to go over in regards to Nancy Guthrie. One is new information about the Nancy Guthrie case. Brian Netton goes over it with Steve. Steve is also a former FBI agent. And there's a couple Tony Bruski things to go over too. We're having a little bit of a Tony Bruski renaissance here. Hey there, Charity. How are you? As people flow on in here, please remember to like the video. They help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's Hootie Snacks. Spank the like button or leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Hey there, Christy, and hey there, Miss Kim. How are you? Long time no see. Hello there, Ramajamma. He sounds like Bert from Mary Poppins. Feels good. It feels good to go live twice in a day, though, doesn't it? We're living the dream over here, Shadow and I. How was dinner, Miss Kim? How have things been going the last few hours for you since we last saw each other? So Brian Netton, almost single-handedly now, is keeping the Nancy Guthrie case alive, as well as Tony Bruski a little bit too, and a couple other sporadic folks as well. Getting my unwinding on with the Wizard. How about that, Charity? Ain't no better way to spend a Monday evening. Hello there, Julie Bug. And by the way, folks, Julie Bug's birthday today, April the 20th. So everyone wish Julie Bug a happy birthday. Hey there, Susan. How are you? Watching from the land down under. One of our favorite flock of black sheep members, Sweet Caroline, is from the land down under. A friend of mine who is a psychologist is also in the land down under right now. She actually had to flee the UAE because of the bombs that were going off there. So she took her son and her husband to Australia, Melbourne. Hey there, Preppy. How are you? Welcome. Hey there, Jackie. How are you? We have a good little flock of black sheep here already. I love it. Shadow loves to see it too, by the way. So I usually go live 5 to 6 nights a week, a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern, to talk about true crime and current events. I use my experience with mental health, addiction, narcissistic abuse, and narcissistic family systems to give my unique insight on those things. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member, or gifting channel memberships, great ways to support the channel. They help me buy lots of Hootie Snacks for Shadow the Night Owl. Hey there, Tina. How are you? Oh, that is sweet of you, Julie. Did you do anything fun for your birthday? And as always, I'm very grateful for all the support I get here. Got some new milestones coming up. I guess 50,000 is the next milestone of subscribers. So this is April the 20th, Julie Bug's birthday. What do you think? By June, could I hit 50,000? Let's hope so. How about that, Christy? How about that? Hey there, Bella. How are you? Giuseppe, how are you? Wendy, how are you? We're going to have a full house tonight. We'll be rocking and rolling. Rocking and rolling, living the dream. Giuseppe, is Giuseppe also Pinocchio's father? I think it was. Hello there, Maureen. How are you? Long time no see. It's always good to see the flock of black sheep supporting one another, Jackie. I like that. Hello there, Mace. How are you? LFG is right. We're living the dream over here. Where else did you see her, Christy? All throughout the YouTube ecosystem. Melissa and Rooster and Driftwood. It's not Giuseppe, it's Geppetto. Look at Driftwood coming out of the woodworks with Pinocchio knowledge. Oh no. Yes. New info about the Bitcoin and notes. You'll see. You'll see. Brian Etten talks to the guest about it. Rooster alert. We got a red rooster alert here. I don't know who that is, Christy. Interesting. That's right, Driftwood. Well, I remember Jordan Peterson used to do some Pinocchio breakdowns, so I got reminded of Pinocchio. It's a much more complex story than a lot of people give it credit for. It's actually pretty interesting. The Jordan Peterson breakdowns of Pinocchio. It's actually some of his best work, in my opinion, back before he became like a political pundit and he was just more of a psychology professor. That was the best version of Jordan Peterson, in my opinion. Daily Watcher, how are you? That's no good, Christy. But all right, let's jump into this Brian Etten video here.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I really appreciate all the support you guys have shown me in the channel. Today is day 79 since Nancy Guthrie vanished. So it has now been almost 80 days since this 84-year-old woman literally just disappeared from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Some new information in this episode I'm getting into. First of all, remember the 2 ransom notes that came early on that went to the TV stations in Arizona? Those are the notes that we believe Savannah Guthrie was referencing when she said that she thought 2 of the notes were real and legitimate. Well, there was a Bitcoin account, and we've got some new information about a transaction in that Bitcoin account early on, and a note in the Bitcoin account specifically that seems like it's either from the FBI or from the Guthrie family. So I'm going to...
So that's the new news part of it right there. A note in the Bitcoin account, either from the FBI or the Guthrie family. This is the first we've heard about this, by the way. That's why this is new. So this is good reporting by our friend Brian Etten here. To me, Brian Etten's the most trustworthy person on this case. So take that for what it's worth as well.
Tell you exactly what we know, the new information about that coming up. Also, I'm talking to retired FBI agent Steve Moore, good friend of the show. You guys have seen him many times. But specifically, I'm asking him about what some of these profilers have told me recently. You know, I've spoken to several retired FBI profilers who have come up with a profile of who they believe is responsible for the Nancy Guthrie abduction based on the information that they have. And Steve is going to explain how the agents on the ground actually investigating the case use the information from the profilers, and they use the information to help them investigate. How exactly does that work, though? And Steve is the perfect person because he has had investigations where he's used profilers before. I also wanted to see what he thought about some of what they're telling me, like the fact that they believe the person responsible is someone who knew Nancy Guthrie. What does he think about that? Plus some of these other details that they had, that it may have been retribution. I'm curious what Steve thinks, because again, he was one of the agents who was actually working the cases like this on the ground. So I'm going to talk to Steve and get into all of it coming up in this episode of Brian Etten Investigates.
All right. So I agree with that part too. Retribution. We'll see if Steve Moore, retired FBI agent, agrees, but I think it was retribution. Punishment, revenge for Savannah Guthrie. For what exact reason, I'm not sure. I have a couple of different thoughts about that, though. But as you're coming on in here, please remember to like the video, spank that like button, or leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Likes are free after all. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And come say hello to the flock of black sheep or the school of Pisces fishes in the chat. Plenty of Pisces here. And as always, all of those things, they help me get hootie snacks for Shadow the Night Owl. Some say he's a cult leader. I say he's just misunderstood.
Steve, it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to ask you some questions about some of this new information that's come out in the Nancy Guthrie investigation and some of the information that I've learned from some of the profilers that I talked to. And I wanted to see, like, as an agent, how you would put that into action actually with the investigation. But the first thing I wanted to ask you about is this new information coming from Brianna Whitney, who's a reporter with the CBS station in Phoenix. And that's one of the stations that received the first two ransom letters, the ones that we believe Savannah was referencing when she said that she thought two were real. And they're now divulging, the station, that when they looked back into the Bitcoin wallet, there was activity on February 10th, and there's been no activity since. So this would have been a couple of months ago, right when the letters first came out. And a small amount of money was put into the account along with a note that said, "We are ready to talk, contact us." And then there was a link for how to reach out to them. And there's no way to know for sure that that was the FBI or Savannah Guthrie, but it seems like it would kind of make sense. What do you think it means that they put that note in there, but it seems there was no response?
So who put the note there, though? Was it the family that did that, or was that the FBI that did that? Or maybe they agreed on that note mutually. I don't know.
Well, I don't think we know that there was no response. There was no response that was visible to us. But I think that what that is the FBI saying, if it was the FBI, which makes sense, it's them saying, "Hey, we're in a negotiation here. This is not something where we're going to play the game where you just dictate terms to us, because it's that whole thing. Well, this is your only mother. You want her back, so you better meet our terms." And they would say, "We're your only victims, so if you don't get money from us, you don't get a dime." So we're both in this a zero-sum end game. I mean, this is big. And so there is wiggle room in negotiations. I can guarantee you, not every negotiation, but it really depends on how you do the negotiation. If you start, I know this sounds horrible, but it's like negotiating on a house or a car price, where if you come in and seem desperate, they will not budge. If they come in and seem truly, yes, we desperately want her back, but we're not going to set a precedent for future crimes, things like this, then you're forcing them into a negotiation. So I think what the FBI was telling them is, this is not you make a demand, we fulfill the demand. This is a negotiation, and this is going to be how it works.
Do you think that there was just that one entry from February 10th. Are you surprised they haven't tried again in terms of the FBI or the Guthries?
I'm not, but again, I don't know what they know. Maybe I would be surprised. And in the FBI, in the same case, there's going to be a case agent, there's going to be a supervisor, there's going to be the supervisor's boss, the assistant special agent in charge, and then it goes all the way to the president in this case. So there could be, it would be astounding to me if there wasn't disagreement within them, within the team, on what the best strategy is going forward. And I've never been in a situation where there wasn't. Somebody saying they sound crazy, just pay them. What do we got to lose? Well, we've got to lose everything on this case and the victim, and a precedent set for other cases. And so both sides come with strong arguments.
How much do you think they're consulting the family in the decision of whether to reach out again?
they're going to consult them before every significant move, and a lot of insignificant moves. But they won't be in, the Guthries won't be in the squad bay or the FBI conference room when they determine what their strategy recommendations are going to be. And certainly, I mean, think of it this way. It is not this relationship, but it has some similarities to a person who is on trial and they have an attorney. That attorney is an expert in the law, and they've seen this type of case so many times. But if the defendant wants to plead guilty, you can't talk him out of it. I mean, I'm sure you could try, but ultimately the decision is going to rest with the defendant. And in the FBI, it's very clear when you're going through training and when you start working these types of cases that you are working as an adjunct to the victims. You are trying to help them. At the same time, you are trying to capture the kidnapper. And so, it comes down to what's more important, capturing the kidnapper or getting the victim back. And that's where the rub comes in, usually. I used to argue that there's no difference. If you get the victim, you get the kidnapper. If you get the kidnapper, you get the victim if they're still alive.
I'm just thinking, I mean, from the Guthrie's perspective, there doesn't seem to be much going on right now from what we know from our sources behind the scenes. Like, they're not making a ton of progress.
Right.
They don't seem to know who this person is who took Nancy or exactly what happened. And this may be the only real link that they have. If Savannah is saying we believe those two are real, I just don't know that I would be able to resist if that was my mom being like, let's get back in that Bitcoin account. Even now, you're up every night, screw it. Let's put more money in there and just see what happens.
Right. And I think some people would argue that puts.
But the thing about that is you have to know they're legit. I would have to get some information to confirm to me, yes, they're legit. And as far as I know, I don't think they've gotten that yet. Has Sheriff Nanos or anyone ever said, I think TMZ might have said it, but the problem is I don't believe them. But if they could do something that could prove that they were legit somehow, part of that would be showing proof of life of Nancy at the time. But once she's no longer with us, I don't even know what they could have done to prove that it was them. It was them who did it. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because I'd have a hard time sending any money if I didn't know they were legit. I mean, what are we doing here? They're just going to take the money and run is what I would think. But if they're legit, then it does change things a little bit. But what do you think, Jet?
You at a disadvantage that if the person had Nancy alive and wanted to return her, they would be the one contacting the FBI. It doesn't. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, if the kidnappers were amenable to discussing it, they would have bit on the first one. And of course, it doesn't mean they didn't. See, the problem I have here is the kidnappers or the people demanding the ransom. We'll say that way. Were negotiating in bad faith from day one. They would provide no proof of life. They didn't take Nancy's safety into consideration, according to physical evidence at the scene. Everything they did was in bad faith, and so it's like negotiating with Iran. They can say that they're going to do something, but we sure don't trust them to do anything because they've never demonstrated anything, any bit of integrity or good faith in the investigation.
And I agree with that too. They haven't really shown any good faith or integrity. The people that did this, at least. So to me, at the best, you're just hoping and praying at this point, right? You give them money, you're hoping and praying. Now, TMZ does have the wallet number of whatever it is. That is also true. So they can keep an eye on that wallet. But still pretty weird they would even give that to TMZ. Like, it's interesting how that works. How is TMZ getting centered in this case?
One of the main issues that makes them seem like non-serious is that they wanted the negotiations basically public. They wanted to go through TMZ. They wanted to go through TV networks. If you wanted an intermediary to pass on stuff, you could choose people other than the media. They wanted this public.
I want to introduce you guys to the sponsor of today's episode, Incogni. Identity theft is such a big problem. It happened to a couple of my family members, and it was... So maybe my response is more of an emotional response, thinking about like if it's your own mom versus, the FBI is actually thinking through whether this is legit.
Well, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The family's going to want the mother back at all costs. And I get that. If it was my wife, I would want her back at all costs, and make your points and save your money on other cases. This is my family. So I totally get that. But at the same time, there would be an FBI agent coming to them privately and saying, based on everything we know, we don't think that Nancy's there to recover anymore. And so if you or they would say the chances of her being there to recover are infinitely small, and the people are not negotiating in good faith if they are the actual kidnappers. And so we don't think that there is value in pursuing this this way of getting her back, meaning giving them money.
Yeah, interesting. I've spoken to a couple of profilers over the last week that I wanted to get your take on some of their theories and how, as an agent, you would put them into practice with the actual investigation. Dr. Gary Brocado, and this was really interesting because he based his whole theory off of statistics, like,
Okay.
actual statistics from other cases that would lead to...
I like that.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it wasn't just kind of a pie in the sky idea. He had all the statistics to back it up. And he was explaining to me that 92% of women who are murdered, the killer is someone that they know. Granted, we don't know that Nancy was murdered at this point, although sadly, doesn't seem like she's probably alive at this point, but we don't know for sure. But so 92% of women who are murdered, the killer is someone they know. Is that something that you think the agents are taking into account, a statistic like that?
So the Bitcoin number stuff, this $300 is not new. What is new is that they wrote them. They didn't tell us that they wrote them. So that's the part that they didn't know.
I don't know. I'm certainly not going to argue with the statistic. That sounds accurate. What I would want to discuss with the doctor is whether he considered this consistent with all other murders of women. I think if you did a sample test of those 92%, the number of women that would have been kidnapped for ransom would have been statistically insignificant. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that is and I'm not disagreeing with him. I would just have to be convinced that kidnapping was statistically legitimate.
Do you think that the FBI is going through, and the way he explained it, when he says someone that she knew, not like necessarily a close friend or family member, but someone she had come into contact with?
I agree with him on that. I just don't think that I would have come to that conclusion with those statistics.
Yeah.
I think that there are very good statistics to show that people who are kidnapped are frequently kidnapped by people who know them.
Yeah, and he actually brought that up too with abductions, which he said there's 350 abductions a year, normally children. but the far majority of those know their abductor. So that would also kind of match up with this theory that it's someone, and he said, it could be a contract, it could be anybody. It doesn't mean someone she knew well. So if
Complete
you're working
agreement.
the case, and we've heard that they're looking at contractors and
Yeah, they got to look at them too, because why not? But also, please remember to like the video, because likes are free. Spank the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And say hello to the flock of black sheep and wish Julie Bug a happy birthday.
construction worker. I mean, how far back do you think they go in terms of people she's come into contact with?
I'd probably go back at least 10 years. And this is going to sound horrible. And I almost hope Savannah doesn't hear this, but I would probably go back as far as the time when Savannah became prominent on media, because I think that this is.
So if I was a Bitcoin person, what I would do is I would immediately send it and convert it to other coins, to privacy coins, to make it less likely I was caught. The more wallets you disperse it to, the harder it will be to track. So if I was trying to get away with something, that's what I would do.
Is likely somebody who believes that Savannah has infinite money and can pay ransoms. And so based on that theory of mine, that's where I would want to start, is when she became prominent on TV. And then you'd have to find out.
And as far as we know, besides the $300, no money was sent there. So right now, it's not even going to be a thing for these Bitcoin people, because they didn't get any. They got $300. What are they going to do with that? Risk getting caught for $300? I don't think so. So until actually a lump sum is there, it's just not something that's going to be on the table. The interesting part to me about this was the notes. That's the interesting part.
Then I'd start my work from there.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you go back that far?
It's difficult. You have to go through all sorts of records. You have to, I mean, it's basically a record search. And, was there construction? I would go back through Nancy's bank account for all those years. Who did she pay? My guess is that she wrote checks. She doesn't seem like the person who 10 years ago was probably, Venmoing people stuff. So I would go back through all of her records, financial records to begin with, and all of her social media, and go back for 10 years. I'd be at her banks and at her social media carriers trying to get her information, and then go from there. And what you're looking for is, say you're looking back 15 years. So many people who she would have dealt with are either out, don't live in the country anymore, don't live in the state, have passed away, all these things. So the ones that are still around to investigate would be it wouldn't be that you'd have to say, oh, this guy's out of town, I've got to find him and talk to him. No, probably not. You'll just want to talk to the people who are still around and still in the Tucson area.
He also said he thinks that the suspect, and he used the word unafraid, was unafraid based on the video, the surveillance video from the front camera. That was the adjective he used to describe him. Do you agree?
I don't disagree. I have an immense amount of faith in profiling as a science, and I tend to listen to them. It's kind of like if you got. I don't try to land the airplane for my airline pilot. They're up there doing it, and they're better at that airplane than I would be. And in the same way, I don't consider myself a competent profiler, but I have trust in their work. So while he says they're unafraid, I don't disagree with that. So I would be looking at somebody who probably has a little bit of arrogance and overconfidence. I would think that if he's unafraid, which seems likely now, that he was overconfident, because there was enough there with just one or two other pieces of information, that it will eventually come back to haunt him. But and I've worked these cases, Brian. I had a case where a woman was murdered. The wrong man went to prison for 18 years, and this guy was finally released, and the new detectives took the profiles from the crime 20 years before and found the guy.
Wow.
And he was right where the profiler said he was.
So when you're working a case, how does it work with the profilers? Like, do you have a meeting with them and they say, look, this is what we think? And then, like, how does it work behind the scenes?
What you tend to do, I mean, this is just very rough steps. In your normal case, it's all done by mail, Zoom, and stuff like this. But you fire off all the information you have on the case. Then they'll go through it and send questions back to you. You answer the questions, send those back, and then they'll come up with what they think is a profile. If you're fortunate, it's a big enough case, the profilers will come to you, and that's so much easier. And then once they come up with their profile, then you sit down either by Zoom or across a table from them, and you go through all sorts of aspects, things that are just such incredible detail that it's just fascinating to me. And they, more often than not, they are absolutely correct.
So yeah, it's a kind of a fascinating science.
Yes, it is. And as you go along in the case, you might ask questions like, you said this person is of this age and this age. If you had to guess, would he be on the older end of the spectrum or the younger end? Just give me a guess. Or this person, if he wasn't this age, we've got a suspect who's maybe, not in his 20s or 30s. We found somebody in his 50s. Is that completely out of the range of possibility? And they'll give you frank answers on that.
Back to what he was saying about believing that it was someone that Nancy knew in some capacity. At this point, it being, more than 2 months.
Yeah, so someone Nancy knew, more than likely, either did it or was hired somebody to do it, right? I would certainly say that part's true.
They've obviously probably talked to the people in the inner circle. We've heard the sheriff say that he says that they cleared the family. I mean, at this point, do you think they've covered pretty much all the close relatives and friends?
Yeah, I mean, they've had all the time they need to do all that. I mean, it's not like days after the investigation. So, I think they probably run the usual suspects, the obvious suspects, things like that. That doesn't mean they've cleared everybody they've talked to, but it does mean that they've found nothing that they would bring to the table as a causal or as a culpable person.
Yeah. We also talked to Dr. Ann Burgess, and her big thing, cute cat, by the way.
I'm sorry, she's causing problems.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Wow, beautiful cat.
I'm sure you can. What's that?
Beautiful cat.
Thank you. He's very.
Look at Steve Moore's doing his Dr. Salerno and Christian John routine, bringing his cat on the stream.
He was just asking for attention. He's just a red tabby, or an orange tabby.
Yeah, he's very. How old is he?
2.
2. Yeah, he's very.
I got him and his sister as a bonded pair of kittens, and they're just the best cats in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. A random cat came to my. This has never happened before. A cat came to my front door today. Was just looking.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very cute. But then I found out it was one of my neighbors.
Yeah, they're looking for food.
Yeah, of course.
Brian's funny. Mike, thank you very much for the super chat, Mike. What role does AI take now in criminal investigations? Well, I guess there's a way to compare as you were talking about a few weeks ago, talking about the porch cam, the Nest Cam footage on the porch, comparing them the separate days to see if it was the same person. I think that's one role it could play. I don't know. I guess maybe you could mess with inputs to see what ChatGPT or Claude thinks, I guess. Chat, do you think of anything else? Can you think of anything else? Any other ways to use AI in a case like this? Maybe you can do some models, but I don't know. I don't know how it would help you. Maybe it'd give you some ideas of who would have the motive, but you would have to input a lot of information now. But Shadow and I thank you for the super chat, Mike. Also, everyone else, remember likes are free. So spank that like button and leave your DNA on the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And then say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat and the school of Pisces fish that are here.
Dr. Ann Burgess is another profile that we talked to. And this was interesting. Her big question was, you have to ask who would benefit from this? Who benefits from her disappearing, from Nancy Guthrie disappearing? And she kept going back to that word, benefit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's how I would work my cases frequently, is I would actually plan the crime. How would I have done this? How would I have gotten Nancy out of her home? How would I have done stuff like this? And then, when you start saying how, then it frequently comes to you, why would I do this? Why would I, what am I trying to do here? And and profilers are good at that. And I probably didn't think of that myself. I'm sure that I got that in some kind of training in the FBI, but it's been very helpful to me. And maybe it came from profilers. But yeah, she's asking the right questions from what I learned and what I did. She's, you have to understand that. And I think that's what's so, confusing to so many investigators and armchair investigators in social media is who would benefit from it, and why, if it was a kidnapping, why didn't you negotiate better? Why did you sabotage your own investigation, your own ransom possibilities by putting it in the media? That destroys it.
So from the beginning, there was something strange about that part to you?
Absolutely. If people want to get a message out, like the Unabomber or something like that, if they want to get a message out, yes, obviously involve the press. But if you want ransom, you don't want the public to know what's going on.
She also brought up retaliation or revenge is possible. And we've heard this before, like a grudge holder, someone who was trying to seek retaliation or revenge and doing that to, I guess, taking Nancy to do that.
Yes. And I think that is a very, very strong possibility now. Because what we have found with media personalities.
Can you believe that B's having lovers' quarrels with Claude AI?
Is there are people out there who are kind of stalkerish, and comes as no surprise to anybody, I'm sure. But and this is the profile I would want to look at. If the person was there as a fan of, or as an obsessed person about Nancy or Savannah and something she had said or something they perceive she said, then I would want to know what that profile is, because people like that really do an amazing amount of research and obsessive investigation into the subject of their obsession. So certainly the FBI by now has gone through all sorts of effort to find anybody who has attempted to communicate with Savannah or with NBC about Savannah, or is online talking trash about Savannah. And it could be, I mean, I remember a case I worked where
I think the distinction with AI, Mace, is this: AI can help, but you don't want to be dependent on AI. You still want to be able to think. You still want to be able to have your faculties. But there's going to be a line that people are going to cross it. And then once they become reliant and dependent on AI, they're really going to struggle without it. Like if something ever happens, then they're going to be like really toast. So I think it can be a supplement, but I would not want to rely on it. That's just me. Yes, I did know that, Maureen. They mine Bitcoin, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin.
DJ in Denver, Colorado, was murdered. And it turned out that he had some guests on who were fighting anti-Semitic groups. And so it was an anti-Semitic group who killed him. And they were 3 states over. And so these are the things that make it really hard to line up a suspect. I still think it is likely a kidnapping, but I think if it's not, I would kind of think that once again, the profiler is right, that this is a person who had a grudge against Nancy or against Savannah.
With the DJ, what did it take a long time to solve and find that group?
No, not really. It was probably within 6 to 8 months they found it. And they weren't that smart. They left a lot of when you kill somebody and leave the body, you leave evidence. And the fact that they took Nancy apparently alive, if she died somewhere else, and you're deprived of that evidence.
Yeah, you don't have that second crime scene.
No.
Yeah.
They will.
Yeah, I hope so. Do you think that the FBI should release more information? Like, I know in other cases they've released more.
What do you think, chat? Before Steve Moore answers the question, do you think the FBI should release more information? Press 1 if yes, and 2 if no. And again, the question is, do you think the FBI should release more information about the case? And I would say, yes, they should, because here's the equation they have to put in their brains. Okay, if we don't have anything going for us, what can we release that the public can actually help us with without interfering with the case? That's the balancing act, right? You want to ask questions, but you don't want to ask the kind of questions that really interfere and make your job 1,000 times harder. So you want to navigate that. But what do you think? Do you wish the FBI would share more information?
Info about who they think the person could be, maybe some information from these profilers, or just a little bit more to kind of give people more focus?
I don't, and follow me on this. I mean, obviously, look what I'm doing. I'm talking to you. I'm a network news analyst for crime. I am on the media side of it now. So, and I certainly believe that media has a strong responsibility in holding people accountable, government, law enforcement, things like that. I think it's one of the noblest things that media does. At the same time, as a career FBI agent, I also believe that if law enforcement is acting legitimately, that media should and historically generally has been respectful of the process. So my fear would be this. Number one, if you release details that only the FBI and the suspect would know, then you could never use those details in any kind of prosecution. So while it may find somebody or help find somebody, it makes it a lot less likely that they'd be prosecuted successfully. So there are two phases here, and you might help yourself here, but destroy yourself here. That's one thing. The other thing is, since I left the Bureau, which hasn't been that long, the entire social media world has changed or come to existence, mostly. And so what happens when you release details, especially profiler details, which, as much as I believe in them, and I believe they're scientific, and I followed them and they made cases for me, they are not 100%. And people could be in danger by other people saying, I figured it out and they're going to pay for this. And you can make somebody's life miserable. So I think that's a new responsibility that the FBI has to deal with. So no, I don't believe you should send more profiling information out there or more investigative details, because it hurts the prosecution. It doesn't necessarily help. And it makes the assumption that the people out there have information that, somebody has information out there already. They know who did this. But I don't think the FBI is signed on to the philosophy that that the people of America are their best chance at solving this.
Yeah, so I get what he's saying too. He goes, you don't want to mess up the case by getting too much information out there. And sure, it would have to be a specific version, I guess, right? Something that the public really could help you out with. And as of now, maybe they just don't have anything that the public can help them with. I don't know. It's hard to say. Now, Rooster thinks they might know who has done it. They just don't have enough evidence to charge him or her. That's possible. I think that's probably even more possible in the Brian Hooker case, but that's a story for another day.
And there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Steve. This is new, which we confirmed and other news outlets have also confirmed. There's a hair. So remember, they initially sent the DNA evidence to the Florida lab that the Pima County Sheriff works with. Now, so it's been there for months. Now they're sending a hair from that lab to the FBI lab in Quantico to do what they're.
How did that hair get to the lab?
In Florida?
Yeah, the sheriff sent that hair to the lab.
That's right.
In Florida.
Yes. Yeah. And this isn't new. Like, they did this a long time ago. We just didn't know about it.
I was just unaware of it.
Yeah. We just found out about the hair. But what's new is that they're now sending the hair from the lab in Florida to the FBI for what we're being told is advanced testing. What do you think that could mean? I mean, is that a good sign?
Yeah, it could be a good sign. It could be a very good sign. I think we discussed a while back, I would have just bundled up the entire bed sheet thing and tied it at the top, so everything that was in the bed would go to the lab, and they could spend a day looking for, 2 days looking for hair flakes or scalp things, anything, because you cannot walk across the room without leaving some type of evidence. And so I suspect she was helped out of bed simply because of her age. And if you do that and you lean over the bed, why do people wear hairnets in restaurants? Because we know hair falls in food. Yeah,
there's a channel, a sleuth something or other channel we went over a few days ago. And that guy was calling in and saying it was his stepbrother or brother or something that did it, and he came from some cult family. I thought what that guy was saying was plausible until he said that 80% of Nancy Guthrie's body could be in the backpack. And I was like, what? So he had me until he started saying that. Then I kind of think he went off the rails. But again, you never know. You never know, because sometimes people can sound a little wild but still be telling the truth.
would have fallen on that bed, very possibly, especially if there was any type of exertion. At the end of a day, you might have a hair or two on your shoulders. You lean over, it falls over. So I think there's so much.
And I don't know who is Devil Dog 88. The person we went over last night, the person that other channel went over, because I don't think that's much personally.
Potential evidence in those sheets and in those blankets. So I'm actually very encouraged by that. The thing with DNA from hair is that it depends on whether you get just the hair or you get the root, the follicle. If you get the follicle, then you get an immensely larger, I'm speaking in general terms, but you get a much larger DNA sample. If you get the hair alone, you have a very reduced and less useful, not unuseful, but less useful piece of evidence.
Yeah, and I actually interviewed a DNA expert the other day about that. I guess that the technology is changing so quickly. Before it used to be if you didn't get the root, you were in trouble. Now I guess there's some new researchers that are really making progress with getting DNA off of just the regular part of the hair. But she was explaining to me, like, if your hair is dyed, it's an issue. Like, there's a lot of variables there that come into play. But it was just interesting to hear how quickly it's progressing. Before you were just basically screwed if you didn't have the root. And now I guess it's getting better. Something else I wanted to ask you that Dr. Burgess said was she believes that there was more than one person involved and that there may have been a boss, like a boss and then some underlings. What are your thoughts on that?
I would have hired better people. But again, I'm not disagreeing with it. That's not my blink on the case. I just didn't see people. I mean, there are different relationships, when you get into hiring somebody to do something. Sometimes you hire them, train them, and equip them. Sometimes you just say, how much do you want? So yeah, it could be very possible. You asked about the process. We would if she said that across the table, I'd say, wow, that's fascinating. What makes you think that? Because whatever makes her think that is actionable evidence for us. I think so because he acted this way, or he did this in a way that didn't indicate that he had planned it, like he was following a script. Those things are always important. But the entire profile makes the investigation so much more effective. I remember one case where they said the person who did this crime lived within sight of this person's apartment window. And
wow.
Things like that, and they did, things like that, just, you can imagine how invaluable they are. And so I would want, I think what she's telling you is very accurate, and I would certainly not argue with any of it, but I would want to know the whys. The profile report on this thing isn't going to be a paragraph. This is going to be pages. And so I would want to know why she thought that.
You mentioned that the kidnapping, there's weird things about the ransom note that don't make a lot of sense. Could the kidnapping be a distraction from something else? Like they just wanted to, I hate to talk about it like this, but like get rid of Nancy.
So what we can do after this, we can check out that guy Sleuth's Intrigue or Sleuth Intuition, his little Rose Lake follow-up. I don't think he found anything, but he did go out there.
And then tried to make it look like a kidnapping. But I guess what would the reason for that be?
Hypothetically, she witnessed a crime or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The statistically, we have a very strong database on how that's done. It's basically walk in, shoot them, leave. That's how the La Cosa Nostra and the mafia and crime syndicates and drug syndicates in Mexico, That's how they operate. Walk in, shoot, go. And if they stay for longer than that, it's only to torture the person or mutilate them to make a better, stronger message to anybody else who might be a witness. In this case, there was too much effort, in my opinion. There's no reason to make it look like a kidnapping, because all you need is them dead and you not caught. And that's a whole bunch easier to do and not get caught than bringing the subject with you.
Makes sense. Well, thank you, Steve, for your time, as always.
Thank you.
As always, I really appreciate Steve for taking the time to talk with me. I appreciate you guys for watching and subscribing. If anyone knows anything about this case, about Nancy Guthrie, what may have happened to her, the number, of course, is 1-800-CALL-FBI. I am getting ready actually to make a trip to go do some work on the Nancy Guthrie story. And I'll have more on that later, a project that I'm working on. Hopefully get some more information, and I'll keep you guys posted. But as always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Please remember to like the video, folks, because likes are free. So tell me, you want to go to Tony Bruski, or do you want to see this guy's little expedition to Rose Canyon Lake? Now, Rooster, your guy, Devil Dog, he has the same thumbnail as the guy from Sleuth's Intrigue, or whatever he's called. I think they're talking about the same thing. Devil Dog and that guy. I might be mistaken. Sleuth Intuition, that's his name. Was he really, Mike, eh? I mean, you know, they're trying to keep things interesting for people, right? That's what they're doing. And hey, I mean, they explored the lead. I give them credit for exploring the lead, because why not? That's what I say. I don't know if law enforcement was going to explore that lead. But again, that guy could have been just leading them on a wild goose chase too, by the way.
This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruski and Robin Drake.
Nancy Guthrie and the Bitcoin. Fresh ransom notes have been hitting TMZ recently. 1 Bitcoin demanded, half for information, half after the arrest. $1.2 million reward through legitimate channels has also moved absolutely nothing. Still no name suspect. Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent, joining myself and Robin Drake to break down some of the latest here. I know you had a conversation earlier this week on your channel over on Break the Case about the Bitcoin, about being able to trace Bitcoin ransoms, on how they work, how they function. Can this be done?
So where do you see this video about the porch mat? I see Nancy Guthrie ransom, FBI reacts. I see Nancy Guthrie Bitcoin ransom, why FBI hasn't paid. I haven't seen anything about the porch mat, though. I guess we'll see.
As a layperson over here, we've seen it in the past. We've seen Colonial Pipeline, Caesars. They've been able to track this sort of thing to a degree in real time when they've had ransom demands on their systems and figure out, okay, we pay the ransom. They track down who did it and they get their money back. It's probably far more complex and not as easy as that. But Jen, what have you found out in your research and your conversations that you've had about these Bitcoin demands and just how difficult they may be to track down or not? And I think
we just lost her again.
No,
as you asked the question,
because she is like Guthrie Queen.
Yes,
she's doing a lot of work on this stuff. Yeah, the tracking through the Bitcoin and poking poking at the system is what she's really been pressing the sheriff, pressing the system, and it's why it's confusing. That's why, you know, hopefully she can come back and comment on this, because, you know, and she said this during the last show, when you have the ability to do something, because the Bureau has resources, the Guthries have resources, and even said online and in social media that they're willing to pay for information just to get their mother back, and really in any kind of condition, why wouldn't you take a swing at it? And that's what I'm kind of curious about, especially when you have the ability to do some sort of track. And again, you just play the law of averages. So say you lose it. Mm-hmm. It's still intelligence you get. You know, we would invest in the Bureau a lot of time, a lot of energy, and do a cost benefit analysis of the money we're going to invest in this for the intelligence we're going to get out of it. So I'm curious why they're not as well. Maybe they know something we don't know. Doubtful,
well, I mean, I'm not super well versed in how Bitcoin works. I have very little of it in my investment portfolio, and I've never bought a damn thing in the world with it. I know there's ways that you can do that, but is it really that untraceable? Is it? I mean, I know there have been ways where it has been traced, and I guess to a layperson, that's the question that I think a lot of us have is like, well, if you can kind of trace it over here in some possible factions, why can't you over here in this? If you have not just the average Joe doing it, the full force of the United States government and their ability to track something like this, is it really that impossible to do? And it is simply the fear of losing $36,000 all that's holding anyone back from pulling that lever, I guess.
And that's what's interesting to me, Tony, because okay, so what I do when I do the calculations when I'm in the world of intelligence is, let's just write off the fact that we're going to lose it. We're going to lose track of it. Mm-hmm. And so, all right, so if we write that off, if you're going for the intelligence, if you can actually garner some sort of intelligence on where she might be, why wouldn't you take a swing at that? So I would actually go for the end result, hoping you might get. So in other words, we're kind of talking about plan A would be to track the Bitcoin. Yeah. And plan B is to find Nancy. Now I'm reversing it. Plan B is to track the Bitcoins. I think that's harder than trying to center on, all right, let's get some actionable intel, because as of what we know in the public right now, we have zero. Mm-hmm. And even if it garners another response, even if it gets someone to poke their head up somewhere, it's one more thing we have to track down, unless for some reason they are inundated with a lot more leads than we know about right now, because I think there's not much they're working with.
You know, that's what I guess I'm wondering about is, you know, we're hearing a handful of stories of, okay, there's a Bitcoin demand here over at TMZ. There's a Bitcoin demand over here at whatever. We're just hearing about a couple of them. When somebody knows that this is kind of the modality that are being demands are coming from in a case like this, you're going to get your copycats, and you're going to get everybody from some, you know, Yahoo on their computer in their mother's basement doing this, you know, all the way to maybe the actual person who has true information. How do you know who has what? You can't go pay every Bitcoin wallet $36,000 and hope for the best. And then how do you truly decipher who has information when that individual, even if they may have the information, doesn't have anything to prove to you that they are that much closer to the actual facts than anybody else?
That's what makes this so challenging, stupid to me.
Yeah.
Because, all right, so if we go back to, I know there's two main leading theories out there. Basically, the main thrust is something in the house was targeted. She was abducted from the house for either.
And I still will always believe, you come during the day, you want things. You come at nighttime, you're coming for the person. So I think they very intentionally came for Nancy Guthrie. I think it was a hit. I don't think it was supposed to be just a kidnapping. I think it was a hit. And that's why I don't think the ransom was really a part of it either. That's just my opinion, though. That is my non-professional law enforcement opinion, right? Non-law enforcement opinion. I think it was punitive, revenge, vindictive, punishment against Savannah Guthrie. And maybe for something Savannah Guthrie's husband has done. And again, Savannah Guthrie's husband is so under the radar in this case, honestly. It's like, think about how much attention Annie and Tommaso have gotten versus how much attention Savannah Guthrie's husband has gotten. And who is way more connected? Savannah Guthrie's husband. By far, that guy is connected to Clinton, connected to Gore, connected in the Epstein files, his company. Like, that's a person that you would think would be getting a lot more attention. But none of these channels are mentioning him. I find that odd. I find that interesting. But what do you think?
Panic escalation because you're going for something else in a house and she dies along the way, or you went into the house to get her. But either way, you're trying to profit from something in that house, either her herself or something else. Or I'm sorry, the third theory is just to terrorize Savannah by making it personal. Okay, so with that in place, I'm still thinking that I still from the get-go, and that's why I love having Jennifer on, because we have all these different theories about what could be, and she is all in on it was targeted for Nancy and that these ransom notes are real. I'm bought in if that's the truth. But here's a challenge with it. If it was the truth, why aren't they pulling the trigger and doing it? Unless you go.
So Shadow is regretted to inform me we only have a little over 100 Hootie snacks available for him. So he said, Jared, you got to stay on him, because unfortunately, when you don't, the likes don't add up and I starve. And I said, I'm sorry, Shadow. Shadow's the boss here. So I said, all right, like the video, spank that like button and leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member, or gifting memberships. Also great ways to support the channel. And if you're lurking out there, I know there's people lurking, then say hello to the flock of black sheep. A lot of Pisces fish in here too, by the way. And we're all very friendly. So come in and say hello.
Go on to the other side of the coin where I'm at on the ransom note side I think the ransom notes were frauds.
Yeah.
Some of them, I would say, because I know there's some things going on with some of the notes with some religious overtones maybe, and they might be. In other words, we got a lot of notes, and so to your point, which one do you respond to? And I think some of them are very indeed coming from the Prince of Algeria, looking for your $1 billion, and all you got to do is give him $500 million first.
Well, it's interesting, if some of them carry, and this is just pure speculation here. So whoever's going to run with this as a story, understand that. If there is a pattern here of religiosity in some specific notes that kind of track of like, okay, these notes seem to come together. Like these might be from a similar group. That still doesn't mean it's from the kidnapper. It just means it's from someone who's consistently sending in the same level of madness. And there is a theory that's gaining some traction right now that some of the notes may contain, I should say, scripture, and that the person behind them may see themselves as holy, someone who gets off on.
LS, we're going to have to remind you to spank the like button. Thank you. Have you liked the button? Have you liked it?
Control, not money. That would explain why the family's public appeals have landed so heavily on religious language. And it would explain why the Bitcoin wallet has sat empty for weeks. If the money was never the point, how long is somebody like that willing to hold on? And does that change the window the Bureau is actually working inside? But if money's not the thing and it's all religious, why would that person be writing letters demanding Bitcoin? I guess it contradicts itself in the same way. But if we were to take the Bitcoin out of it, and because some of these notes I believe just had messages, didn't have a Bitcoin connection to it, just religiosity in them, allegedly. And if this is about control and it's not about money, and it's more so about watching the Today Show, and then
lo and behold, Shadow is very grateful for Giuseppe's super chat. Shadow's got to eat. You see that? You see that? That'll give you some good Hootie snacks, won't it? So Shadow and I are very grateful for that. Thank you very much. As for everyone else, likes are free, and so is subscribing to the channel. You got to get those repetitions on the like button. But thank you very much, Giuseppe. We appreciate your support.
Leaking some information out to somebody, and suddenly, oh, look, Savannah's not on that interview anymore. She suddenly was pulled away live on television. I mean, there's a level of control there that some asshole may be sitting somewhere going, I made that happen. People get off on weird shit. And if they can see them having a level of control of doing something like that, pulling a live television lever from wherever they're at, or then pulling the lever of emotions with this family and their tweets and their responses that they put out online, they're getting a reaction. They're able to connect directly with that celebrity that otherwise has gatekeepers in front of them, but they're able to do it because they did something so extreme. Sometimes it's just for the joy of that. And that's the sick, scary part. And that's the part where we may never actually find out who the hell did this if that's the goal.
I totally get that and see it as a possibility. And just like all the other theories, though, all right, so let's go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
Then why isn't there more? So if you have a message of religiosity, or if you have some doctrine, if you have some poking you want to do, or you have some control you're trying to exercise, we're seeing a little bit of it. But there's so much more they could do if that was the end goal. Why, in other words, if you have a message inside of the ransom notes or the notes that you're sending to TMZ, they're not getting aired. So if there's a message in there you want to be aired, why wouldn't you find another outlet that would air the entire thing, or another way to put it out there? So, okay.
No, I think they are. I think they're attempting that right now.
Right, but I know, but it's the tempo that I'm not getting on this one, because people that are trying to gauge and control an action or control things tend to want to have a higher tempo.
Dana, in my defense, I don't even think it was me that invented it. Someone else invented the spank the like button thing. I just ran with it because there was a time when I was coming up with things. Okay, what's the best creative way to get people to hit the like button? Spank the like button was one of them. Leave your DNA on the like button was another. There were a few others, like, hit the like button if you want Sheriff Nanos to be recalled. Things along those lines.
A return of their investment, of taking risk. And yes, but it's not quite all the way there is what I'm saying.
But I think there's also, I think we might almost be overthinking it a little bit too.
I think so.
We're thinking that there's some sort of end goal here, that it is to get Savannah to do something, or to get money, or to get whatever. It might just be somebody with some sort of extreme delusional religiosity going on that really enjoys poking animals with sticks. I mean, when you're at the zoo and you're looking at, not that you're poking animals with sticks at a zoo, but let's for a second, for the sake of argument, say that you're poking an animal with a stick at a zoo. Let's say you're 5 and have that sort of mentality. You're not sitting there going, I'm going to poke the animal with a stick with any sort of greater goal of like, I hope it sleeps well tonight, or I hope it eats more food. No, you're just going for the reaction at that moment, and then you walk away to the next exhibit because your brain is just firing every which way, and you're a kid. I'm wondering if that's kind of what's going on here. There isn't a greater go. There's not a greater good. There's not a greater goal. There's nothing. It's some asshole that is delusional as hell, thinks that they're communicating with, they're somehow communicating and moving people in some way, shape, or form by poking his family with a stick is somehow, it's fulfilling to them. And that's all they need. They're getting fulfilled by something. Not that there's a greater goal, but they're whatever they're hungry for, they're getting fed it.
So I like the thought process, Tony. So the intent I was speaking about earlier was the intent was to profit by something in that house. But we keep seeing incongruencies between that intent and actions, which keep not adding up. That's why you said we're overcomplicating it when we're doing that. So if the intent wasn't to make profit off of Nancy, because that went sideways. If the intent wasn't to profit off of taking something of material value out of the house, because that went sideways, what was the intent? Well, according to your theory, the intent is just to keep poking the bear forever. Which now, and so here's a great analogy for that. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, he had an intent in a manifesto of trying to get rid of technology in the world by blowing people up. But his intent was never to stop. His intent was to get better at it and just keep doing it. And so that's an interesting, because remember, always trying, it's never motive, as John Douglas talks about. Motive is something that we like to say in the press and the media and all that, but it's always about understanding. That's why I keep coming back to that word intent. And every time we're dealing with this Guthrie case, we can't quite keep lining the intent that we think it is up with the actions we're seeing. But your theory out there, actually it lines up better than anything else I've heard so far. And actually, and also, and I think, I'm sorry to cut you off, and I think Coffindaffer's, Jen's great work on that poking at Nancy is definitely a huge answer.
So what did Tony say that Robin's agreeing with here? I missed it. So can someone let me know in the chat?
And then supporting that intent of the eternal purgatory they're trying to put the family in, because that it could be never ending without an end state of something that we're looking at, material gain, Bitcoin gain. That's why it's not gaining traction. It's just one way to keep that attention and poke it.
I mean, I'm wondering if the true person who's behind this has anything to do still with any of these ransom notes, or if it's someone who just saw an opening, saw an opportunity to start playing that role and to be taken as seriously as if they were this, and they're doing it. I mean, there's the simplistic, innocent childhood version of it where it's a prank call, and as a kid you laugh at it and you get
Ted Kaczynski,
the zoo. We're thinking that there's some sort of end goal here, that it is to get Savannah to do something, or to get money, or to get whatever. It might just be somebody with some sort of extreme delusional religiosity going on that really enjoys poking animals with sticks. I mean,
all right, so his thought is just a sadistic thing. Now, I did say this before, right? We mentioned this many times with the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt, right? The guy just had an obsession with Jodie Foster and was trying to impress her. And I've always said we can't rule something like that off the table in this. But I think, to me, a punishment part makes sense too. A hit on Nancy Guthrie to punish Savannah, and maybe to punish Savannah's husband too. And I probably should be adding that to the mix as well. I've been saying to punish Savannah, but it could just as easily be a punishment for that guy as well, in a roundabout way.
When you're at the zoo and you're looking at, not that you're poking animals with sticks at a zoo, but let's for a second, for the sake of argument, say that you're poking an animal with a stick at a zoo. Let's say you're 5 and have that sort of mentality. You're not sitting there going, I'm going to poke the animal with a stick with any sort of greater goal of like, I hope it sleeps well tonight, or I hope it goes eats more food. No, you're just going for the reaction at that moment, and then you walk away to the next exhibit because your brain is just firing every which way, and you're a kid. I'm wondering if that's kind of what's going on here. There isn't a greater go. There's not a greater good. There's not a greater goal. There's nothing. It's some asshole that is delusional as hell, thinks that they're communicating with, that somehow communicating and moving people in some way, shape, or form by poking his family with a stick is somehow, it's fulfilling to them. And that's all they need. They're getting fulfilled by something. Not that there's a greater goal.
Shadow the Night Owl rests on my microphone. So he's perched on my microphone. How about that? And hit the like button with your dinghy, especially if this were the Brian Hooker case. That would certainly win. But I think it even wins in this one too. So that was a good one, Ellie.
Oh, but they're whatever they're hungry for, they're getting fed it.
So I like the thought process, Tony. So the intent I was speaking about earlier was the intent was to profit by something in that house. But we keep seeing incongruencies between that intent and actions, which keep not adding up. That's why you said we're overcomplicating it when we're doing that. So if the intent wasn't to make profit off of Nancy, because that went sideways. If the intent wasn't to profit off of taking something of material value out of the house, because that went sideways, what was the intent? Well, according to your theory, the intent is just to keep poking the bear forever. Which now, and so here's a great analogy for that.
That's a great one by Laura there. She says, throw Shadow a like vest. Now that is classic too. That's a good one. That should be added to the repertoire there. That was good, Laura.
Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. He had an intent in a manifesto of trying to get rid of technology in the world by blowing people up. But his intent was never to stop. His intent was to get better at it and just keep doing it. And so that's an interesting, because remember, always trying, it's never motive, as John Douglas talks about. Motive is something that we like to say in the press and the media and all that, but it's always about
Mav's wifey. Holy cow, 2 months already. Well, Shadow and I greatly appreciate that. It's given him some hootie snacks. One day, when maybe we have 100,000 subscribers, Shadow will be wearing like a suit and a tie, or a top hat. He'll be like the freaking Monopoly man.
Understanding. That's why I keep coming back to that word intent. And every time we're dealing with this Guthrie case, we can't quite keep lining the intent that we think it is up with the actions we're seeing. But your theory out there, that actually it lines up better than anything else I've heard so far. And actually, and also, and I think, I'm sorry to cut you off. And I think Coffindaffer's, Jen's great work on that poking at Nancy is definitely a huge answer. And then supporting that intent of the eternal purgatory they're trying to put the family in, because that it could be never ending without an end state of something that we're looking at, material gain, Bitcoin gain. That's why it's not gaining traction. It's just one way to keep that attention and poke it.
Oh, we got another super chat here from Mav's wifey, $9.99 for Shadow's fancy new outfit. Can you see that? Shadow's going to be looking pretty spiffy soon with all these like vests and super chats being thrown his way. It'll be like the Winnie the Pooh meme, where like there's the fancy Winnie the Pooh versus very average Winnie the Pooh. Well, pretty soon, Shadow the Night Owl is going to be looking like the spiffy with Winnie the Pooh compared to how he looks now. Thank you again, Mavs. We appreciate your support. Everyone else, please remember to like the video. Throw Shadow a like vest. Spank the like button, or leave your DNA of choice on the like button, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well.
I mean, I'm wondering if the true person who's behind this has anything to do still with any of these ransom notes, or if it's someone who just saw an opening, saw an opportunity to start playing that role, and to be taken as seriously as if they were this, and they're doing it. I mean, there's the simplistic, innocent childhood version of it where it's a prank call, and as a kid you laugh at it and you get some excitement out of it. Somebody believed that this was crazy. I remember I used to prank the competing radio station across town with fake cancellations when there were storms. Now, Todd,
you got Todd going.
Tony.
I would be like, the Our Lady of Basted Chicken is, or the Our Lady of Eternal Damnation is canceling their basted chicken roast today because of the storm. Okay, we'll get that on, and then they would air it, and I got extreme joy. It was funny. But that was innocent and stupid. This is someone's life. This is someone's mother. This is someone's well-being. This is someone's very existence. But I'm not saying that those same sort of levers or that same sort of fucked up enjoyment that you get from making a thing like that couldn't also be bastardized in someone's brain and be so cognitively distorted that there's people getting their jollies out of this sort of shit too.
Tony, I think out of everything we've covered so far, this makes the most sense to me, believe it or not, because if you wanted to, because this person's got away with this.
Yeah.
And the reason why most people get caught is because they're trying to profit. The intent is to profit in some way. And the attempt to profit is what always trips them up. But if you're not trying to profit, you're just trying to poke. You control the tempo of when you want to poke. And since it doesn't, and this makes so much sense. It's all falling in place. They were never looking for two-way communication. Remember, it's always one way. And anytime you do, and so let's just assume all the ransom notes are accurate or real, which I don't think. But the original ones that came in, which they think were, at least that's what Nancy, Savannah said, and some others have said, I think even Jen maybe, none of them actually gave away for two-way communication, which hasn't happened. And so remember, I keep going back to the stats saying, well, that can't be that, because the stats say every single case, there's got to be two-way communication, but this one wasn't. And so what fits no two-way communication needed? The poke, the poke, the poke. Without the need for profit, they just want to get the attention to keep poking.
Some people just like the poke.
It's very interesting. I'm going to re-examine a few things on this one. And it's what I love about it too, it totally supports what Jen's been saying the entire time about retribution towards Savannah or the family in some way. Yes-ish. I think it might have been personal towards them, but it definitely created an opportunity for someone that was public, who's someone's mother, who they knew where they lived. In other words, it might have been targeted towards them, or it might have just been target of opportunity for them, for this need they had in their lives to have again, celebrity notoriety is a huge reason why a lot of morons do stupid things. And this is, I mean, look at the celebrity notoriety they're getting out of this. They're, like you said, they're controlling a narrative at their tempo. All they have to do to get attention is put a little more trickle out there.
Also, if you give Shadow a patch, he's going to be looking like Mr. Peanut with his top hat and this little thing.
Without even, and it doesn't require two-way communication, which keeps them safe.
And that person may or may not have anything to do with Nancy. It may just be somebody who found a lever and is getting some joy out of doing this.
You're right. It might not have been the first one. It could have been someone that came along and just riding the coattails.
Two totally different crimes being committed, in my opinion. I don't know.
Torture is what it is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's somebody it gets joy. It's a very sadistic type thinking. I mean, your thoughts in the comment section on Substack and YouTube. We'd love for you to weigh in and give us your thoughts. Check it out. This is Robin's latest book. It's Not All About Me. It's available wherever you get books. Go check it out. Jennifer Coffindaffer, check out her channel.
It's Not All About Me. I wonder what that's about.
On YouTube and on Substack, Break the Case, and you can hear that conversation that she had recently with an expert about Bitcoin, and it's like an hour and a half. It really dives deep, so I do highly recommend checking that out if you're trying to get
including the video for David and getting in the trial. I mean, looking at Jennifer's stuff before you listen to our show is always a great move, just like Bob Motta.
Yeah, go check it out. All right. We'll continue our conversation in the comments section. Until then, and until next time, for Jen, for Robin, for Todd, I'm Tony Bruski. We'll talk again real soon.
So, folks, make sure you like the video out there. Send Shadow a like vest. Leave your DNA in the like button. And spank the like button, too.
This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruski and Robin Drake.
It's happened. We have an arrest. David has been arrested. The 14-year-old girl's remains found in the trunk of a Tesla at a Hollywood tow yard. 7 months later, the man whose name was on that car walked out of a Hollywood Hills home in handcuffs just yesterday, arrested on suspicion of murder. But this didn't come from a grand jury. It didn't come from a criminal complaint. LAPD went straight to a judge and moved on their own, arresting him on suspicion of murder. We don't have charges yet, and the defense of David has been very quick to point that out. The question isn't just what do they have, it's what finally pushed them over the line. And to begin our conversation, you found out in your research and your conversations that you've had about these Bitcoin demands and just how difficult they may be to track down or not. And I think
we just lost her again.
No,
as you asked the question,
because she is like Guthrie Queen. She's doing a lot of work on this stuff. The tracking through the Bitcoin and poking at the system is what she's really been pressing the sheriff, pressing the system, and it's why it's confusing. That's why, hopefully she can come back and comment on this, because and she said this in her last show, when you have the ability to do something, because the Bureau has resources, the Guthries have resources, and even said online and in social media that they're willing to pay for information just to get their mother back, and really in any kind of condition, why wouldn't you take a swing at it? And that's what I'm kind of curious about, especially when you have the ability to do some sort of track. And again, you just play the law of averages. So say you lose it.
Mhm.
It's still intelligence you get. We would invest in the Bureau a lot of time, a lot of energy, and do a cost benefit analysis of the money we're going to invest in this for the intelligence we're going to get out of it. So I'm curious why they're not as well. Maybe they know something we don't know. Doubtful,
Well, I mean, I'm not super well versed in how Bitcoin works. I have very little of it in my investment portfolio, and I've never bought a damn thing in the world with it. I know there's ways that you can do that, but is it really that untraceable? Is it? I mean, I know there have been ways where it has been traced, and I guess to a layperson, that's the question that I think a lot of us have is like, well, if you can kind of trace it over here in some possible factions, why can't you over here in this? If you have, and not just the average Joe doing it, the full force of the United States government and their ability to track something like this, is it really that impossible to do? And it is simply the fear of losing $36,000 all that's holding anyone back from pulling that lever, I guess.
And that's what's interesting to me, Tony, because okay, so what I do when I do the calculations when I'm in the world of intelligence is let's just write off the fact that we're going to lose it. We're going to lose track of it.
Mhm.
And so, all right, so if we write that off, if you're going for the intelligence, if you can actually garner some sort of intelligence on where she might be, why wouldn't you take a swing at that? So I would actually go for the end result, hoping you might get. So in other words, we're kind of talking about plan A would be to track the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And plan B is to find Nancy. Now I'm reversing it. Plan B is to track the Bitcoins. I think that's harder than trying to center on, all right, let's get some actionable intel, because as of what we know in the public right now, we have zero.
Mhm.
And even if it garners another response, even if it gets someone to poke their head up somewhere, it's one more thing we have to track down, unless for some reason they are inundated with a lot more leads than we know about right now, because I think there's not much they're working with.
That's what I guess I'm wondering about is, we're hearing a handful of stories of, okay, there's a Bitcoin demand here over at TMZ. There's a Bitcoin demand over here at whatever. We're just hearing about a couple of them. When somebody knows that this is kind of the modality that are being demands are coming from in a case like this, you're going to get your copycats, and you're going to get everybody from some Yahoo on their computer in their mother's basement doing this, all the way to maybe the actual person who has true information. How do you know who has what? You can't go pay every Bitcoin wallet $36,000 and hope for the best. And then how do you truly decipher who has information when that individual, even if they may have the information, doesn't have anything to prove to you that they are that much closer to the actual facts than anybody else?
That's what makes this so challenging, stupid to me.
Yeah.
Because, all right, so if we go back to, I know there's two main leading theories out there. Basically, the main thrust is something in the house was targeted. She was abducted from the house for either panic escalation because you're going for something else in a house and she dies along the way, or you went into the house to get her. But either way, you're trying to profit from something in that house, either her herself or something else. Or I'm sorry, the third theory is just to terrorize Savannah by making it personal. Okay, so with that in place, I'm still thinking that I still from the get-go, and that's why I love having Jennifer on, because we have all these different theories about what could be, and she is all in on it was targeted for Nancy and that these ransom notes are real. I'm bought in if that's the truth. But here's the challenge with it. If it was the truth, why aren't they pulling the trigger and doing it? Unless you go on to the other side of the coin, where I'm at on the ransom note side, I think the ransom notes were frauds.
Yeah.
Some of them, I would say, because I know there's.
To me personally, I think all of the ransom notes were fraudulent. And so, like the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I think it will lead nowhere. I mean, it could be interesting to see how I know how Bitcoin works. Like I've been into crypto, so I get it. But for others who don't know, it could be informative for them.
Some things going on with some of the notes with some religious overtones maybe, and they might be, in other words, we got a lot of notes. And so to your point, which one do you respond to? And I think some of them are very indeed coming from the Prince of Algeria, looking for your $1 billion, and all you got to do is give him $500 million first.
Well, it's interesting, if some of them carry, and this is just pure speculation here. So whoever's going to run with this as a story, understand that. If there is a pattern here of religiosity in some specific notes, that kind of track of like, okay, these notes seem to come together. Like these might be from a similar group. That still doesn't mean it's from the kidnapper. It just means it's from someone who's consistently sending in the same level of madness. And there is a theory that's gaining some traction right now that some of the notes contain, or may contain, I should say, scripture, and that the person behind them may see themselves as holy, someone who gets off on control, not money. That would
Scripture is a little bit different than a note too, by the way, right?
explain why the family's public appeals have landed so heavily on religious language. And it would explain why the Bitcoin wallet has sat empty for weeks. If the money was never the point, how long is somebody like that willing to hold on? And does that change the window the Bureau is actually working inside? But if money's not the thing and it's all religious, why would that person be writing letters demanding Bitcoin? I guess it contradicts itself in the same way. But if we were to take the Bitcoin out of it, and because some of these notes I believe just had messages, didn't have a Bitcoin connection to it, just religiosity in them, allegedly. And if this is about control and it's not about money, and it's more so about watching the Today Show and then leaking some information out to somebody and suddenly, oh, look.
So how it would work if, say they did send a lump sum of Bitcoin, right? So what they would do is they would then have to send that Bitcoin somewhere, because Bitcoin, unless you're going to trade it over the counter, meaning someone's going to pay you cash and send them to that wallet, but no one's going to do that because that Bitcoin is hot. That's a hot wallet now. So what they're going to try to do is send it to an exchange. And then what they would try to do from there is probably transfer it, convert it to many different projects to make it harder to track. So you transfer, swap. And then when you've gotten them confused and you wash trade, right? So now you can't see what's what anymore. And then once you've done that, then you send to a place to cash out. And there's ways to do that, by the way. Now, it'd be tricky because the first transfer would be the trickiest one, because they've probably notified all the exchanges, this address, red flag this address. Anything that comes from this address is to be frozen. And if that happens, it would just get frozen, and then they probably wouldn't be able to do anything. So they would need to do something. But what they could do is transfer it to another address and then to another address and then send it to an exchange to make it trickier for them, right? That's what I would do.
Savannah's not on that interview anymore. She suddenly was pulled away live on television. I mean, there's a level of control there that some asshole may be sitting somewhere going, I made that happen. People get off on weird shit. And if they can see them having a level of control of doing something like that, pulling a live television lever from wherever they're at, or then pulling the lever of emotions with this family and their tweets and their...
It certainly would be risky though, because there's still a chance they get caught depending on what method they do. So it would be silly to risk getting caught in a murder charge, right? Because that's what you're risking here, right? You're not just risking money laundering. You're risking a murder charge is what you're doing. you might even be risking the death penalty for crying out loud. So, something to consider.
The responses that they put out online, they're getting a reaction. They're able to connect directly with that celebrity that otherwise has gatekeepers in front of them, but they're able to do it because they did something so extreme. Sometimes it's just for the joy of that. And that's the sick, scary part. And that's the part where we may never actually find out who the hell did this if that's the goal.
I totally get that and see it as a possibility. And just like all the other theories, though, all right, so let's go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
Then why isn't there more? So if you have a message of religiosity, or if you have some doctrine, if you have some poking you want to do, or you have some control you're trying to exercise, we're seeing a little bit of it, but there's so much more they could do if that was the end goal. Why, in other words, if you have a message inside of the ransom notes or the notes that you're sending to TMZ, they're not getting aired. So if there's a message in there you want to be aired, why wouldn't you find another outlet that would air the entire thing, or another way to put it out there? So, okay.
No, I think they are. I think they're attempting that right now.
Right, but I know, but it's the tempo that I'm not getting on this one, because people that are trying to gauge and control an action or control things tend to want to have a higher tempo, a return of their investment, of taking risk. And yes, but it's not quite all the way there is what I'm saying.
But I think there's also, I think we might almost be overthinking it a little bit too.
I think so.
We're thinking that there's some sort of end goal here, that it is to get Savannah to do something, or to get money, or to get whatever. It might just be somebody with some sort of extreme delusional religiosity going on that really enjoys poking animals with sticks.
So we heard this part in the previous one. He divvies them up, puts the same content in multiple videos. Let's see what Jen Coffindaffer has to say about Savannah Guthrie.
True crimers, welcome to Break the Case. I'm your host. I'm Jen Coffindaffer. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all staying an extra half an hour, or hopefully you got my message and coming in.
And by the way, everyone, please remember to like the video, send a like vest to Shadow, leave your DNA of choice on the like button, and spank the like button. And then subscribe to the channel and say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat. There's also a good group of Pisces fish in here as well. Jen Coffindaffer's channel is really blowing up on YouTube. And really, I think it's just because she's the former FBI agent. I think YouTube really likes it when you are a professional of sorts, or you have experience, because they really want people that are professionals getting the attention. And the same applies for psychology too. If you're a doctor, an LPC, LCSW, they want you to get the attention. Just like if you're a lawyer, that gives you a certain level of credence. And there might come a point where I might have to do something like that just to get my name on the map. But there are certain people that are streamers out there that don't do that. Look at Hassan, look at Destiny, look at Sneeko, and others, right? They're not anything. They're just streamers.
Half an hour late. I had an unexpected interview this morning that I wasn't really expecting, but it was on a really important case. So I took the call and finished up with that and started getting ready for this interview. In particular, I just like to make sure I have some graphics for you and things like that. So we're going to talk about Savannah Guthrie. I recently did a poll on Twitter, and
now what Jen Coffindaffer should do next is, maybe I should request it and say, let's talk about Savannah Guthrie's husband and his connections. Maybe that's worth a deep, maybe I should be the one that does the deep dive on that. How about that? Do my homework one day.
On Twitter, I wanted to know how many people still believe that the Guthrie family was involved, and if they did, who in the Guthrie family? And so I put up, I believe,
Laura, can't forget Asmongold. I know him too. I know all of the political streamers. Vaush, Asmongold, Nick Fuentes, Sneeko, Clavicular, all of them.
3 options plus another option saying that they weren't involved. So my number one option, or one of the options, it wasn't number 1 or 2 or anything, but one of the options was Tommaso. One of them was Tommaso and Annie. One was Savannah. And then the other was not involved. And it ended up being about a 50-50 split. And I tell you what, was very interesting to me. And of course, we're talking about Nancy Guthrie and her abduction, and the fact that she still remains missing, the fact that the case has not been solved. And as Annie Guthrie wrote, they are lying on the embers, only the embers of hope, or words to that degree. She's a poet. We did a whole show on Annie Guthrie. I hope some of you will have a chance to look at that. A lot of preparation, a lot of looking into that. It's really difficult with people like Annie, and even to a degree, Tommaso was very difficult because they aren't public figures. And whenever you're not a public figure, you don't have as much information out there. And again, on Annie, I found a lot of really good information that I hope was helpful to everybody to know and to understand, especially when it comes to any nexus with Nancy Guthrie being abducted. And then same with Tommaso. It's always tough to, I call it proving a negative. It's hard to prove a position that people have when there's no evidence. In other words, if there's a case where there's some evidence of something one way or the other, that's a lot easier to say, okay, this is their evidence. Let's look at it. Let's see if it has legs. Let's see if it's a true, or if it's a legitimate possibility. But in cases where people are accused for no other reason than their family, and there's nothing else that links them to a particular crime, zero, that's always more difficult. So anyway, did a deep dive also on Tommaso. Hopefully you can take a look at that. Tommaso Cioni, who is been Annie's husband for 20 years and caretaker. But today I want to talk about Savannah, because believe it or not, in that poll, so about 50% said, listen, the family's not involved. The other 50% was divided almost equally, being Tommaso being not involved at all, Tommaso and Annie being involved. It was something in the 20s for both of them. And then there was a percentage, believe it or not, of hundreds of people that responded that it was Savannah. And I know that probably catches many of you, because you all are true crimers. I mean, you follow true crime, you understand it. You're not just, it's a hobby in a sense, but it's more than a hobby, I think, to most of the people we have on here, and most of the people that consider themselves true crimers. They really like to do deep dives. They listen to lots of different people. They try to get all avenues and all aspects of a particular case. They really want to understand a case. And so, that's why I appreciate y'all. Somebody said, oh, it was the Bitcoin person. The Bitcoin person said, your audience is so intelligent. I mean, because we, communicated obviously offline after the show.
I mean, the one person I haven't thought is guilty in any way is Savannah Guthrie. I have really never thought that she was even worth considering in this thing. Why? Because I think she was also the target. That's why.
And even before the show, he looked at some shows and wanted to kind of, I think, know what to expect, wanted to make sure he should accept such an invitation. No one wants, and it happened to me once. I mean, I've been on several podcasts and invited, and some of them are extremely small. Some of them were extremely small. When I look back, I know I was on Gavin Fish very, very early on, when he just had I don't even know if he had 10,000 subscribers. I think he had 6. But I looked at what he was doing and I said, you know what? This is a person who is legitimately, he doesn't have any background or any law enforcement or anything, but he legitimately likes to look into true crime. And now I think he has over 100,000 subscribers. And I'm happy to say after all this time, you know, we remain friends in the space and appreciate each other's work, which is really nice. And many others. When I look at
The thing about the Bitcoin video is it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant until they actually send money to it. Like it's not going to be a thing. If they actually send money to it, then they could actually see. But until that, and again, there's 2 parts of it, right? One, I don't think the notes are from the person who really did it. So I think it's just someone trying to exploit the situation. That's another part of it, right? So between those 2 things, like, I don't know, I looked at the video on her channel, Jen's. It doesn't look like people liked it on her channel.
Judy Ron is an example. When he used to have me on constantly, and sometimes the shows were hours long. I remembered I always say, Ron, I've got 1 hour, and 2.5 hours later, I'd be like, oh my God, we're still on. But nothing negative. We would just run over. And so had me on almost constantly when he had very little following. I think 30,000 maybe compared to where he is now. He's got a huge account now. So it's kind of interesting to see how different people grow and expand in this scene. And then also, it's also been very interesting to watch how people grow and expand when they decide to take a particular vantage point. And unfortunately, I'm not going to name all of those creators, but some obviously latch onto particular POV.
I mean, the thing with Jen sometimes is she just talks about nothing sometimes. Like when she's on her own. I think Jen shines the best when she's being directed via direct questions. So Tony Bruski's good with that with her, right? He asks her direct questions and she gets an answer. But when she's on her own, she doesn't necessarily do that. But we'll take a look. We'll see what the Bitcoin person has to say. I mean,
True crimers, welcome to Break the Case. I'm your host. I'm Jen Coffindaffer. All right, I say this every show, but I am so excited. Everyone knows that I've been looking for the approach.
Some sheep, we would trade. We start with what is.
Yeah, no, absolute draw. In other words, if the pot is sweetened enough, how could that lead to identifying who the abductors were? Okay, without further ado, I know that was a long introduction, but he deserved it. How are you doing, sir? Thank you so much for joining us. Uh-oh, we can't hear you. Are you on mute?
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So please start us off with just rudimentary. What is Bitcoin? How does it fit? What is cryptocurrency? I know that's the overarching, but can you just explain to us, as if we're in first grade, how this all works and why it came into being?
Absolutely. That's exactly how I like to learn. It's jelly at the bottom shelf. I think it was Einstein who said, if you can't explain it simply enough, you just don't know it. So what is Bitcoin? Well, let's start with what is money, because in essence, Bitcoin is looking to.
So Bitcoin is a blockchain, and it is proof of work, POW, versus POA, proof of authority, versus POS, proof of stake. Proof of work means you need to mine it. And so Bitcoin is mined. And it costs a certain amount of money to mine Bitcoin. So think of it like mining gold, except Bitcoin is like digital gold. And you mine digital gold on computers. And it takes a whole processor to do it. It's expensive, and it takes energy to do it. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. I think right now there's like 15, 16 million of them out there, I think. I could be wrong. I should ask ChatGPT really quick. And every 4 years, there's a halving, which means for the same amount of work, you can only mine half the amount of Bitcoin. So over time, it gets more expensive to do it. But if you want to learn about Bitcoin, what you should read is the Bitcoin Standard. I used to be a bit of a crypto bro, by the way. I don't talk about it, but I have talked to crypto experts before on the channel. It was very fascinating to me. And in a way, if I became crypto rich, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So in a way, like I was almost crypto rich for a minute, but it slipped through my fingers. And so here I am. And where would everyone be if I was crypto rich and not streaming all the time? Goodness gracious.
Replace money one day. And it's doing a good job at it, by the way. Well, if you remember way back when we were very, very young, if you wanted a cow and I had some sheep, we would trade, we would barter. You had something of value, I had something of value. There's something called the coincidence of wants. So if you and I coincide with our wants, we could say, okay, same value, let's trade them. From then, somebody in China decided to use coins, and they developed these gold coins, silver coins, different values of rare earth that had value to people. And at first, people says, well, that's not a cow. I want the animal. I don't want this piece of coin. But then after a while, I was adopted. And by the way, there were detractors that said, I don't want the coin. I want the actual physical item. We moved on to coins, and then after that, we moved on to bills.
All right. So right now, there's 19.6 to 19.7 of the 21 million Bitcoins that are mined. And so there's 1.3 to 1.4 million Bitcoins to be mined left. Shadow be a poor owl left in the shadows of Jared's. That's a good one, Snow Baby. Well, Bitcoin is like a stock in that the price of it goes up and down. And the same with all the other altcoins. So the year it'll be finished mining, 2140, is when the final Bitcoin will be mined. In the early years, lots of Bitcoin mined quickly. Now much slower issuance. So there's a built-in scarcity design. How about silver, Rooster? How about, now I would say S&P 500 I choose over gold. Although people will say diversify your portfolio with precious metals, but I like the S&P. If you read Tony Robbins' Master the Money Game, that's what he says. He says the S&P 500 and index funds, they outperform mutual funds 90-something% of the time, which is true. They do.
And we had the same exact adoption issue. People said, I don't want the bill. It could be ripped up. The bill can be, what if it gets wet? What if it gets lost? That was overcome, so we started using bills. Then just a few years ago, I remember when I was a kid, I saw a video in the 1980s, I think it was, when debit cards came out and they started to be used. And a lot of the older folks, and by older, I mean 60s, 70s, 80s, they said, not you, come on. They said, oh, I don't trust that. I want to see the real cash. That debit card can be stolen. What if somebody steals my PIN, right? And so now we're on to electric money or media that's out there in the ether. We don't know exactly what it is or where it's at or what's a blockchain or what's the cloud. Well, it's similar to the credit card or the debit card. A long time ago, we realized that we don't control our money. If you give it to the bank controls the money. I went to the bank, a couple of years ago. I went to go buy a car, and it was a Saturday. I looked at the car. I said, okay, I'll take it. and the guy wanted like $2,000. I forget what he wanted, not too much money. And so I pulled everything I could from the ATM. I didn't think I was going to buy the car, so I didn't take the cash with me. So I called the bank, like I've called them before, and I've said, can you raise my available funds that I can pull out of the ATM? Why? I'm going to buy a car. What kind of car? Does it matter? I'm going to buy a car. It says, no, you need to tell us the make and model, the year, how many miles it has. They gave me this long list of requirements so they can write it down and they can approve whether or not I was going to pull my money out. That's what the banks can do. A little while ago, a lot of credit card companies said, oh, we don't want the population to buy this certain item. We don't, and so people were not allowed to go to certain stores and buy certain items. That's the control of the ledger. So long story short, we needed to develop a system that we control, or that is not controlled by a central government, or is not controlled by a bank. So Bitcoin was developed. Bitcoin was developed by an obscure anonymous man he called himself Satoshi Nakamoto. That's a made up name. There's a lot of ideas of who this man was. We don't know exactly who he was. He developed this technology. The technology is automated. No one person has control. We've got a couple of graphics that I think we'll bring up in a little bit, not just yet, on exactly how the technology works. Long story short, Bitcoin is the ability for you to keep your money, keep it safe. The ledger isn't held by a bank.
In the Simpsons spoof of Planet of the Apes, Troy McClure says, I hate every ape I see from chimpanzee to chimpanzee.
By a government, by anybody else. It's held by an automated system that is consistently checking itself to make sure that it's correct. There's no double spending. I can't send you one Bitcoin and the same exact Bitcoin. I'm tricking the system because I'm going fast enough or slow enough to then send the same Bitcoin somewhere else. That's not the way that it works. By design, it has checks and balances to ensure that nothing funny goes around and money gets sent and received correctly. Very inexpensive rate, by the way. So that's a little bit of an explanation, trying to explain what is Bitcoin, the replacement of money. It's the evolution of money. It's the next step of money. The last thing I'll say about Bitcoin is our grandchildren are never going to touch real currency. Unless it's some kind of collector's items, they will only use digital transactions such as Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency.
That is so interesting to me, because you're right. When you look at the evolution of money, I can just imagine somebody saying, I want a cow. I don't want a silver coin. And like you said, the passage then of dollar bills, people must have been thinking people were crazy. This sophisticated, as we've all talked about, are they really this sophisticated, everyone? How many people are this sophisticated to be able to really launder this so it could never come out without any breadcrumb?
Well, there is another option, an option that changes the game. There are
deposited, say, 1 Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin. In other words, sweeten the pot. Let's say 1 Bitcoin for round number, 74,000. And somebody took that out on the other end. Could that be traced? That's what I want to know.
There's a highly...
So this is the $1 million question here. Can it be traced? Let's see what he says.
High possibility, yes. There's ways to hide the money. Money laundering, same thing in Bitcoin. It just doesn't happen with money. It happens in Bitcoin. There's methods. I think we have a graphic a little bit on. This is a perfect example here of what the Cali cartel did. Okay, this is a cartel. I believe they had a lot of their organizations in Spain. They hid their money. They were able to send it into legitimate businesses. They were able to deposit them in different accounts. They got away with it for a very long time. But obviously, after a while, law enforcement was able to trace him, but it took a long time. It didn't take a few days. That's what we're seeing here. Yes, you're right. If we deposit money and they move it, we can eventually get there. Okay? It's not guaranteed. Is it possible? Absolutely. The blockchain is public.
Yes, so it's a public blockchain. That would be a step in the favor of law enforcement. Again, they would have to shift it around quickly to masking it. So it can definitely be tracked. They can hot list wallets, this address, blacklist it. Any money that comes from this address, you can flag. But it's going to be more sophisticated from that because they're probably going to want to send it to other addresses that are not blacklisted, right?
And because the blockchain is public, we can see information. And not just the FBI, but you've got the whole of the internet, the whole of the public that would be interested to know what is that wallet address so that they can trace it. Ultimately, it's possible, just like we were able to, or not we, but law enforcement here was able to trace every penny behind the Cali cartel. Bitcoin has something similar. I think we have a graphic on the mixer.
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
No, that's all right. This is something that criminals are trying. They've gotten away with it, some of them. Nowadays, it's a lot harder to get away with this. There are programs, there are developers who are taking legitimate Bitcoin transactions and telling the bad guys, the bad actors, send me your Bitcoin, and for 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever the share is, I will clean the Bitcoin for you. So they put them inside these blockchains, inside these transactions, along.
This is what I was talking about with money laundering. They call it a crypto mixer. Crypto mixer services that take in identifiable cryptocurrency coins from one wallet and output unidentifiable clean tokens to a different wallet or wallets. Crypto mixing is similar to money laundering. However, due to the distributed nature of cryptocurrencies, creating unidentifiable tokens is almost impossible. Interesting. So they can try, in other words, and there are privacy coins too. I wonder what happened then. So Monero is a privacy coin, for example. And then there's projects like Rose or Secret. They do programmable privacy, so private transactions. So some people might try to do that as well.
With a lot of very good, legitimate people, and it comes out clean. They will, and that's the slide right before this. So maybe we should have. I should have. My apologies. Put this on second. There you go. They go through this elaborate transaction where they send this Bitcoin to different wallet addresses, and then it comes out clean. Now, FBI, a lot of law enforcement are getting wise to this. So instead of just accepting the transactions as is, they're watching this. They're reading this. What the bad guy counts on is being able to, on the other end, let's suppose I want to steal 10 Bitcoin.
And by the way, folks, please remember to like the video, throw Shadow a like vest, leave your DNA on the like button, spank the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I should be at 41,000 by the end of this stream. I'll be disappointed if I'm not. And come say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat. A lot of Pisces fishes here. And it is still Julie Bug's birthday, by the way. I don't know how old she is. She didn't tell us. But happy birthday again to Julie Bug.
So I'll get 20 Bitcoin clean addresses that are not related to anything nefarious. Maybe they're legit. Maybe they come from an exchange. Maybe they come from a business, right? Like what we do here where we mine the Bitcoin and they go to valid addresses. We check all the addresses to make sure there's nothing funny going on. So then the 10 Bitcoins are divided here. They're sent to a bunch of transactions, a bunch of wallets is what I mean, a bunch of addresses, move back and forth. They lose 1% here, 0.5% there. So at the end, maybe I get from the 10, they become 5 as an example. Okay. So now 10 aren't coming in and 5 aren't coming out. 5 are coming out. So I'm looking for the 10. I'm not looking for the 5. And then those 5s are divided across the 10 different wallets. It makes it very difficult to trace. Okay, here's my original 10. Now those 10 are actually 5 because it cost this guy 50% of his Bitcoin to launder it. But valid organizations, exchanges, they watch these mixers now.
I mean, this is just extremely dangerous for these people, right? If they did all this and it was truly for money, they're really playing with fire. And if they get caught, I mean, you're risking a murder sentence, right? In Arizona, I'm pretty sure they have the death penalty in Arizona too. Do you think, here's a question for you, chat. Do you think in Arizona, do you think if they catch whoever did this, the prosecution would suggest the death penalty? What do you think? Press 1 if you think they would, and press 2 if you don't think they would. And again, the question is, do you think the prosecution would suggest the death penalty if they catch whoever did this? 1, yes, 2, no.
They watch these applications. They watch these wallets and they trace these wallets. And they say, okay, these wallets were a part of something nefarious. And good companies, legal companies, won't use those wallets. They won't touch them. It's getting harder for the money launderer, for the Bitcoin launderer to get out to work. Those wallets are tainted. Now a bunch of good people are also going to be tainted on those wallets. And organizations like a Coinbase isn't going to give you the money for those wallets, for that Bitcoin. So I can't take it to the exchange and say, okay, now I have 5 Bitcoin, give me my cash. Those places will say, nah, it's dirty. Go do something else with it.
Yeah, so a lot of people think they would recommend the death penalty here. Almost everyone, except for Rooster, I saw. And Rooster said that they might do a deal with him to get Nancy's whereabouts. And that's also true.
That wallet. And by the way, that gets tagged every hop of the way.
See, sorry.
Ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I thought you were done with that point. Sorry.
No. One more statement. This is just one way where law enforcement nowadays, it's a cat and mouse game. They're tagging those wallets. And in this case, if 6 million would go into a mixer, you can bet that when it comes out, every single one of those wallets will be looked at with a microscope.
See, this is my whole point right here. This graphic is my whole point in working organized crime for 10 years. I can tell you, we trace the money because it has to come out and you work backwards. It takes forever, but you can launder money all you want. You can launder it and it takes forever, but sooner or later it comes out on several different ends and you work backwards. And that's how you can do it. And this is why I'm saying that same could be done with Bitcoin. The same could be done in this case. It makes no sense to me not to prime this case and put money in that Bitcoin account, even if it's got to be it can't be $300. They're not going to risk all this for $300. But for $74,000, they might move it into various wallets. And are they even, I mean, let's really ask the question. Let me do it in the Bitcoin graph. Are they really this sophisticated? As we've all talked about, are they really this sophisticated, everyone? How many people are this sophisticated to be able to really launder this so it could never come out without any breadcrumb?
Well, there is another option, an option that changes the game. There are different coins, different, let me put it this way. I just went to Mexico. They use the peso. Okay. So I did the thing where you exchange it, you get the pesos for the dollars. Day to day, they use pesos. You have the lira, you have the euro, you have all these different currencies around the world. Same exact thing with crypto. Bitcoin's the big one, but there are other coins. So what a bad actor can do is they can change it from Bitcoin to a different type of coin. There's a coin called Monero. It by design does not show you the graphic you see in front of you. It doesn't show you the hops. It keeps everything anonymous. Every single one of these would be question marks, and you're not going to know what comes out on the other end.
Didn't I mention Monero before, didn't I?
Coins like Monero. Another very popular one is called Zcash. These act like Bitcoin, but they don't show you a public blockchain. They can go into the ether and come out clean. That is a definite fear nowadays. That's a new system, newer system. Now, Monero's been around for a few years. People have questioned the security. People have questioned the authenticity, but they're becoming stronger. Zcash right now,
Go ahead.
Zcash is something that is being trusted more and more. Zcash.
Monero is a privacy coin, right? The whole point of it is to be private. Secret network and rows are privacy transaction, programmable privacy.
I can literally send you $10,000 and nobody will, from one wallet to the other. That's a lot of people think that's the next Bitcoin. It acts just like Bitcoin. You're only ever going to have 21 million, just like Bitcoin, and it's got a higher level of privacy. So another variable that is somewhat newer, you can actually do what they call chain hopping. Turn it from Bitcoin into Monero, into Zcash, then transfer through wallets. Because it is designed to be private, there's no public blockchain. They can come out clean anywhere.
Okay,
That
wait.
right now is the biggest way. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And that's what I was saying before, right? You change it to those privacy coins, and that's how you would money launder it in a way that they wouldn't be able to track. Now, again, they'd have to do it correctly, but that's what I would do.
This is my problem with all of this. You want to be able to use it. Who cares if you've got all this crypto money, all this cyber money going from wallet to wallet to wallet? I know the one guy ended up getting a pizza for it. I know you said there's a hamburger place that will accept it now. And I know Bitcoin, that is, not Moneros and not Zcash. So you have all of this. So basically you're saying that you would have to be a very patient kidnapper that doesn't want to take, say, $70,000 and use it for a vacation or whatever other purpose?
So I wish I could put myself in the kidnapper's mind. But if I was a bad actor and I did something illegal, I wouldn't risk 74,000. I would risk a couple of million, definitely. Maybe we have an FBI psychologist or some kind of brilliant mind out there who knows this and who would say, we're going to have to give up a couple million, 3 million, 6 million in order for this actor to do something. And then can we trace it? If he keeps it in Bitcoin, yes. And by the way, I'm not telling you something that the criminals don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They understand this. And quite frankly, if they gave up that money, if they advised the family to give up that money, that would certainly encourage other bad actors to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's one of the big reasons they don't want to do a Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoins, because it would do nothing but encourage more kidnappings and more ransom. However, if it stays on the Bitcoin network, it's traceable, just like you said on the Cali cartel. If they do other things, they have a higher probability of getting away with it.
So, of course, and that's the main reason why the FBI does not encourage paying any ransoms, right? It doesn't encourage it in the United States or in these cases, for sure. That is absolutely true. However, in this particular case, which And I think they have so much more going on. I still think they'll solve this case within 6 months. Well, that's what I've said from the beginning. I'm sticking with it. I think it will be solved. But I just don't understand, and you might be right, would a kidnapper risk it for under that? But this wouldn't come from the money of the family. I'm not suggesting that. I want to make that crystal clear. There are huge case funds, hundreds of thousands of dollars of case funds that cases are allotted. We have it because you have to have it. You have to buy covert vehicles, you rent apartments, you have to have money for a case to work. So we have case funds for cases and we have case funds for informants. And it's a lot. And that's where I'm suggesting money come from. And I'm not suggesting.
So you all have to remember, this whole thing is a side quest. This is only even relevant if the Guthrie family or the FBI sends a chunk of money to this Bitcoin address. Then this becomes relevant. But until that happens, there's no relevance to it. But you also hear Jen saying, yes, you just tickle the wire. That's what she means. Oh, send 50 grand and see what happens. I think she just wants to do something. But I don't think law enforcement's in a hurry to do that, to be honest. I don't think the Guthrie family is in a hurry to do that.
Suggesting it come from to encourage, obviously, that is a big concern. You don't want to be like Mexico, where good, let's start kidnapping people because actually the government will pay. But I'm talking about being able to solve this case with a paltry amount compared to the millions. We'll see at the end how much they've spent on this investigation, but it's going to be astronomical how much they've spent, just like they spent on the Gabby Petito case. It was unbelievable when those numbers came out. And it's going to be similar here, possibly, depending on how long this goes on. I'm just saying, for that paltry amount, to have a chance at catching them when maybe we might not catch them. Is it worth all of that, right? Betting the come. Is it worth that maybe you won't catch them? Is it worth that maybe you'll encourage other kidnappers? Is it worth that?
Then, in my opinion, it is worth it. On a personal level, I think it's a good idea to put the money in, and you may have to wait, just like you said earlier. It may be years from now, but our government won't stop looking. And quite frankly, it might be the best way to catch them.
Yeah, and I think about this too.
And the big part of it is it's only the best way to catch them if it's truly them, right? If you think this is just an opportunistic person that's exploiting, it's just an exploiter, right? And how do you know? How do you know this person's truly on the other? And again, maybe that's why the FBI and others haven't sent money, because they don't think it's actually legit. That's possible too. And they just haven't told us. I think that's extremely possible. But please remember to like the video, send a like vest to Shadow, leave your DNA in the like button, spank the like button too, subscribe to the channel, and say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat, and say hello to the school of Pisces fishes. And as always, thank you for all the support. Send super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships. Great way to support the channel.
This was a case of a kidnapping that went wrong from the beginning. Not to get too much in the weeds, because I know you're on to give it, but there were so many mistakes earlier by the local department to do with the crime scene, to do with them stopping the search right away, not getting the.
Even if you do that, you don't know if it's legit though, because if it's the exploiting person, the opportunistic person, it looks the same way. They're going to try to do the same things. They're going to try to convert it and do all these things. And then you don't know if that person truly has something to do with the case.
The FBI involved for a couple of days, all of that, the key window, 48 hours, that is not cliche. All of those mistakes, you would hope that in a normal kidnapping case, there was one that happened right up the road. When I say up the road, an hour and a half away in Scottsdale, on January 31st, so a day before she was kidnapped, another kidnapping case occurred. Again, high value targets. They demanded 64 million in cryptocurrency. They got two knuckleheads, whoever was behind that, got two knuckleheads to come all the way from California who didn't even know one another. They gave them $1,000 seed money, and these people did this crime, but they're your normal knuckleheads that make so many mistakes, like you mentioned earlier, that they were caught. They were caught right away. They were caught in the middle of the crime. It was very vicious. They beat the people. Nevertheless, that's the normal what happens in kidnappings, at least that I've been involved with. It's kind of, they're quickly resolved. You know, this is
there is a misconception that Bitcoin crimes, crypto crime, anybody can get away with it. It's rampant. It's crazy. Bitcoin, crypto is bad. But quite frankly, it's not as simple as that. The blockchain is public. We can find a heck of a lot of information. Number one. Number two, let us not forget that the US dollar has been used in 10,000 times more crime. It's the highest monetary tool in the world. It's much greater than any crypto has been, and it will continue to be, because the US government is so stable, so popular. Crypto may one day surpass it, but today, when people think of crypto, if they think of just the negative connotations, it's nothing but new technology. It's a cat and mouse game. The police are getting very, very good at this. I admire the FBI with their willingness to look at this complexity and get in the weeds and figure it out. Look, at the end of the day, my mother taught me when I was a little boy, the truth always comes out, one way or the other. We may not know that truth, but somebody out there does. And quite frankly, my heart just hurts so much for the Guthrie family and what's going on. And to be honest with you, I would love to be able to stick in a couple of million there to see it start moving, to see what happens, and to trace it as far as we can go. It's got to eventually go somewhere. Something's got to break. But again, that's only one variable, the Bitcoin aspect, right? People talk, mistakes will be made. Maybe we'll find something in the future and be able to trace the forensics. But as for the crypto part, we can't look at it and say all crypto is evil. We can't look at it and say, oh, it can't ever be traced. Yes, it can be traced. I love your idea. I wish we would do it.
Yeah, I think for the reason you brought up, it will never be done because the Bureau doesn't want to be behind encouraging. But again, this is the interesting piece of it. It's really up to the Guthrie family.
Yes.
At the end of the day, because the Bureau, they can use some case funds. They're not going to use millions of dollars of case funds. So at the end of the day, sadly, it really is on the plate of the Guthrie family, and I'm sure they've had these conversations, how important is it to the Guthrie family to find the abductor, to find what I think will end up being what happened to their mom, as opposed to finding their mom. It's horrible. And I've also said this, I think that this is part of, just my opinion, the terrorism that this abductor continues to do, because that's still looming out there. And then you have the other person that's coming on, saying, listen, I didn't do it, but I know who did, and I know where she is, and I saw her live in Mexico. Obviously, that is, it could be a Nigerian scam, whoever it is. That's the one I think that would take the bait of the 37,000. And for me, oh my gosh, that's worth it to me to try to trace. 37,000, the Bureau is spending that hand over fist in a day on this case. So even
my whole point with it is, with the person that did this, that probably killed Nancy, if it's legit, Would they risk getting caught for 37,000 if they actually did it? I don't know about that.
And if it's not the main kidnappers, and then again, you worry about the extortionists, right? You set the precedent. But this is the one that's really mimicking how the other ransom notes are written, who they're written to. They haven't been able to be traced either. So they have some sophistication about them. And they mimicked it right after, by the way. I believe it was on day 10, if I recall correctly, the day that Porch Guy's face came out. That's when they started, meaning the second set of notes, the extortionists, I'll call them. So there's the ransomers, and then there's the extortionists. And they want a half a Bitcoin. I don't know. I tickle the wire, but I've always been like that. And it's, hard work and innovation often helped catch bad guys.
Absolutely.
You have been amazing. I have taken up so much more of your time than I meant, but I want to give you the floor at the end of this to just say, is there anything else you want to impart on us? I'm so glad we made this connection. You're brilliant. And hopefully between your explanations and then me dumbing it down, we have a better understanding.
Well, I hope so too. I mean, my only thing that I want to kind of emphasize in is I'm praying for the Guthrie family. I feel absolutely horrible. Nobody should be going through this. I can only think of my own mother and what if that happened with my own mother, and it breaks my heart every time I see that picture and every time I see her. And I hope nothing but the best for them. And at the end of the day, there's evil people out there. I mean, there's people that don't belong in society, and my heart just completely breaks.
All right, I guess that's the end of this part. We'll watch a little bit more of her talking about Savannah before we close this one down. But remember to like the video. Like I said, likes are free. Send Shadow a like vest. Leave your DNA in the like button. Spank the like button.
Because it's very popular in this cult-like following concerning that POV, and then they run with it. That's one of the things that concerns me about this case, and this is the intersection why I tangented a little bit off of that, is I can see there's a huge undercurrent in this case, a huge undercurrent to go after the family, and it continues as we speak. There are I think they're going to get sued. I really think they will get sued. Some of the accounts that continue with this and that put together these huge documentaries that millions of people are watching.
Ah, there it is. That's probably part of the motivation there for Jen to kind of change her tune on some of it. Because I don't remember her being so defending of them before. I think she was more even, like that guy, Matt Murphy. But as of late, she's shifted a little bit. And I think she just explained why. She doesn't want to be sued. And maybe there was talks behind the scenes of Savannah Guthrie suing Ashley Banfield. Would that be surprising? Perhaps not. How do we know that? Because Megyn Kelly reported it. Megyn Kelly reported that Savannah Guthrie was unhappy. Now, she didn't say she was going to sue her, but it's certainly possible, I would say.
When I say documentaries, that they do them documentary style, as opposed to this is a lifestyle, as opposed to shorts that are supposed to be under 1 minute. We do a lot of shorts on this channel that come out at night, where we just try to keep up with different information, mostly on the Nancy Guthrie case, but we do all the other cases that we cover, that I'm covering either on X or here, just to give everybody a look-see, or just breaking news or interesting news. We did a lot of these shorts that can be 1 to 5 minutes long on Celeste Rivas, but they have a very strong message attached to them. So I hope you guys can watch some of those. They're on YouTube for sure. And then they also, I put several of them out on X too. So hopefully you guys can catch some of those. But my point about all of this is I see creators trying to grow, trying to expand their audiences and get viewership on the backs of blaming innocent family members. That's how I look at it. Believe me, if I could find a kernel of evidence or information, I would let you know about it. I can't, because it doesn't exist. And whether you believe Nanos or not, he says it doesn't exist. And I promise you, having worked on task forces, 28 years in law enforcement, 8 years now in the expert witness realm, where I look at murders and crimes and homicides and testify about them. Of course, I love that because I get thousands of pages, all the body worn camera, all the information, so I can make a true assessment. It's harder here. It's harder when you're not in.
And honestly, Monk's Intrigue is probably one of the channels Jen is referring to, actually, because he kind of like really aims it towards them. People like Tommaso.
In the war room, you're not on the task force. You're not able to read every ounce of information that exists on this case and other cases, but we're able to see a lot. We're able to see what comes out publicly, and that's a lot because a lot of people have been digging. We're able to look at some of the source information, which, again, always caveat source information. But I love it when there's a source and I can backstop it with information, for instance, that's come out of Savannah's mouth or that's come out of Nanos's mouth. In other words, when you have the trifecta of people saying the same thing, it's much more easy to corroborate a source. And that's how you do. That's how you corroborate sources, because anybody can be a source. Anybody can say they're in the know. And if you look, most of these are several steps removed. It's not anybody on that task force. It's not even anybody in Pima County. In most cases, this is going to be somebody removed, somebody retired, somebody, and then that is what's cited as a source. Not that they have inside knowledge, really, but they have some knowledge. And, you know, we'll see. I should look at.
We'll look at Monk's Intrigues video here before we.
But I feel if we didn't do it this way, now before we get into the latest findings of.
Disclaimer of liability. The content presented in this video is intended solely for entertainment purposes and should not be considered legal advice in any jurisdiction. Any conclusions drawn from this material are the responsibility of the individual viewer. The author does not assert any facts beyond what can be verified through thorough private research or information readily available in the public domain. When discussing ongoing or resolved criminal cases, all individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Similarly, in the context of civil cases, all parties are presumed not liable unless a court determines otherwise. This is like written up by the defense lawyers. The content in this video is protected by copyright law, and any reproduction, distribution, or copying of this material is prohibited unless permitted by applicable statutes and case law. Copyright for materials used under fair use remains with the original author of copyright holder as applicable. Maybe that means I shouldn't even watch this, by the way. And perhaps it does.
Should look and see how many sources in this case have actually been right. I think it's going to be so far a pretty low number. But in other words, if I compare the source information we've gotten and compare it with what has ended up being the truth, really, we'd have to do it at the end of the case, but it'd be kind of interesting to look at that. But I want to concentrate on Savannah because I was really surprised.
But the thing is, Song Bits, once he starts mentioning fair use, me watching it, then it becomes a gray area, right? Me watching it and commenting on it, yeah, it can be fair use. But at the same time, it can be them trying to stick it. You can get burned. It can be either one. So if you read the comments on some of that video, some people were like, oh, former law enforcement officers here. Yeah, it could have been a distraction for people going through the back door. Sure. Sure. It definitely could have been that. But it makes me hesitant. I'll put it to you like that, right? I've read those disclaimers before, but I've never seen the distribution disclaimer before. I've never seen the fair use part either. That part makes me a little suspect and leery. The problem with that, Nanny, is you don't know until it's too late, right? That's the problem. You can hope so, but then by the time you realize it's too late.
When I saw the poll come out with really anybody believing that she could be involved, that she could be behind this, that she could have been, that she could have paid for somebody to do this. I mean, it's nothing short of shocking to me. It's really nothing short of shocking.
Now you read his comment section, one of the videos on the comment section. Yep. Why they act, you say? When TNA do get caught, and I believe they will, A is the weak link. Defense lawyers will throw out all video footage. The public have discussed this crime. There are so many variations of all video footage online, and there's so much chatter about the case, it'd be chucked out. What evidence will be left? Very clear. T, months of planning. T. So this person's basically doing exactly what I'm against, is saying it's definitely them. And that's in the comments. So, I don't like that. That's going too far. But that's the kind of comments that video gets. That part is true, Rooster. That part is, I've played that channel before. I just don't think they had that thing up there yet. Now, we've watched him do the Tommaso walk side-by-side thing. And it could be that song, Bits. It could be. We'll check it out. We'll see. I had the same fears about Nancy Grace, and it turns out Nancy Grace is fine.
Latest findings of.
And again, fair use, hear ye all fair use.
Ever seen this high school picture of Richard Ricky Burton, then you're welcome. Because he is a very compelling origin story for a budding narcissist, a person of interest for the police right from the very get-go. And in most tellings of the Zodiac Killer, he's barely talked about, if not talked about at all. I went into the Zodiac case without prior knowledge and just opening doors. Right. And I'm telling you, it's a very nerve-wracking way to go about it. But I feel if we didn't do it this way, then you wouldn't be looking at this 1968 high school picture of Ricky. So this is just a quick reminder, to join me for the Zodiac videos that I've been creating, because I would love to have more people along the way for this ride and have more takes. And so in the midst of not much going on in the Nancy Guthrie case, well, maybe for some hairs that were sent to the FBI finally, which I am not holding my breath over. I tend to just go over stuff I've been over countless times before. And I have since gone to watch the crotch holster guy with inverted colors. And I do believe we have something that is very intriguing. Okay. So first, take this picture as the prime example. The picture is pretty much cut and dry at first glance. Okay. You have the perpetrator just standing there, appearing to look at Nancy's secure.
And they're probably putting disclaimers on because of what Megyn Kelly said, that Savannah Guthrie was upset, because of what Jen Coffindaffer just said too, right? They don't want to be sued. Who wants to be sued? That's why I always try to CYA, and I say I'm not accusing anyone of anything. The most I'll say is I don't think anyone should be fully cleared, like former district attorney Matt Murphy says. That's as far as I'll go.
Security gate in which he should already know that he has no way in hell of breaching, at least without risking.
And yes, by the way, please remember to like the video, spank the like button, leave your DNA in the like button, throw Shadow a like vest, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat and the Pisces fish in the live chat too. Plenty of Pisces here.
Waking up the neighbors and look at these AI interpretations of the exact scene. These things are all over Facebook, and it's pretty much just in different colors, but what we imagined. But what if I were to tell you that my human eyes, even though hindered by these Coke bottles, might be just a little bit better than AIs? I mean, dare you think it's possible? But I feel I have proof that this is the case, that the perp's sole attention is actually not that security gate, but on the camera the moment he steps onto that porch. Now, to first strengthen the point I'm about to make, okay, I'd like you guys to look at this picture again as provided by the FBI. And I think we understand immediately that the infrared is causing that pupil to reflect white. This is basically the infrared version of the infamous red eye effect that people would get when they used flash photos, which destroyed many a memory. This new infrared version, the official technical term for it is the bright pupil effect, named by the great scientist Captain Obvious. So going back to the initial photo, because if you've never tried this before, I'd advise you to clean up your floor right now, because your jaws are about to drop onto it. Knowing now what the bright pupil effect is, let's invert. Now, where do you think he is looking at now? Huh, AI? If we watch this video completely inverted, you can now better follow his line of sight. And this can be up for debate. Okay, the moment he stepped onto that porch, I think his pupil was targeting that door camera from the start. His thoughts and attention was on that Nest doorbell camera, which I feel changes the whole vibe from fumbling buffoon to something more diabolical. Okay, so here is a picture of my doorbell camera. That small little circle at the top is the wide angle lens. The lens placement is not a secret. We want you to know that our doorbell camera is recording you. And with his little bite light, okay, all he has to do is just flash it for a second and he will be able to shine where it exactly is. And here's what Nancy's Nest camera would look like. And Nest makes it even more obvious where that lens is. So I do feel fairly confident that the perp's eyes were mainly trained on that doorbell camera from the beginning, simply because on that pitch black Arizona porch, even without a bite light, once motion is detected by that doorbell camera, it's lighting up like Christmas. Mine's looks like a damn black widow staring at you, judging you with infrared eyes. Now let's all watch the initial approach again at regular speed and color. Now remember, in previous videos, I said that there was no reason for this porch video to exist if the back doors were propped open, unless something changed to the plans from within inside that house. Because seriously, why are you messing with the front door?
Well, one of the other people said, the AI channel said, calculated incompetence. And I thought that could be a possibility, considering that I never thought they were as dumb as many law enforcement people were saying they were. I thought, yeah, maybe they did do that on purpose. Maybe it was calculated incompetence or distraction. Sure.
Let's just say you had just destroyed a couple of those infrared spiders on the right side of the property already, which they did. Then you definitely know that there's another infrared spider at the front door. Just don't be in front of it. I feel that this crotch holster guy, the more I watch his shenanigans, the more I'm getting convinced that this is all a put on, leaning towards a performance to create a narrative, aka staged. If we are to believe that his sole focus was on that doorbell camera that whole time, then what the hell is this move now? I'm about to knock and then suddenly noticing the camera. It just looks awkward now. If we know he had his eyes directly on those infrared lights just a moment ago, coupling this with his inability to cover up the world's tiniest lens, I mean, look at this part again. He is resting his right hand on that doorbell camera. Am I not right? Why is he doing this? If he had just moved his hand just a little lower, right? Just a little lower, he would cover up that entire lens easily, which leads me to believe that he was not attempting to block the camera. I think he was attempting to dislodge it with one hand on top, and then, the bottom is attempting to find maybe a crevice, a gap to yank on. And that's what I'm coming to believe that he is attempting to do, or leading us to believe he is doing, because like I mentioned before, there is no way this guy is thinking of breaching that security gate. So why is he there? And of course, that building a nest on a nest situation just boggled all our minds, okay? It's an act that I'm pretty sure we've all lost a little bit of sleep over, because it's an act that has led even many professionals to question this guy's mental capacity. But if it's all...
And that's where I think that AI video might have been onto something. Calculated incompetence. Narcissists will use something known as weaponized incompetence to get people to do things for them. They'll act like they can't do anything right, and it'll get their partners or the people around them to do it for them. This is similar to that, but calculated incompetence to make it look like they are buffoons. And if that really was their goal, they did an outstanding job of doing that, because all of them had said, oh, these guys are just buffoons. Robin Dreek, Maureen, Jen, Tony Bruski, all of them have said these guys are just such idiots. Ashley Banfield, all of them did. And I was thinking the whole time, I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's showing the proper respect for your opponent here. Not respect as a person, but just respect for the criminal act and what they're capable of.
All premeditated. Look this way while I move this way, kind of red herring. And the FBI has really no leads, no beads on this guy. Then how dumb is he really, right? That's a question that many people have posed. I'm posing it again. So I'm really leaning more these days that this was all staged, that this culprits have greatly manifested this entire thing for all of us to watch. Okay, so if his attention was always on that camera, then he wanted to be seen by this camera. So let's put ourselves in the culprit's shoes, okay? Imagine if you cooked up a plan to be seen by this camera. And of course, you do not want to be known, okay? So yeah, you wear a mask. A ski mask is a good option, but your eyes are exposed. So what do you do?
Here's the thing, though. If that person on the front porch gets caught, it doesn't even matter if they actually pull the trigger or whatever. They're getting charged with murder. Everyone, what is that rule called that many states have? Responsibility for one is responsibility for all. So you're even involved in this case, and there's a murder involved, you're all getting charged with murder one. And you would all also get recommended the death penalty too. That's how that goes.
Is that why those eyes appeared so unnaturally perky with the movements of an old man? Because most likely, if the footage ever does come out and it's plastered everywhere like how it is right now, it's more likely that this perpetrator thought about all this. And that person should know that it's more than likely that key people in the case or in his orbit would recognize those eyes. And speaking of those eyes, it's even more apparent in the inverted footage that this guy is wide-eyed, deer in the headlights the whole time. Okay, he never blinks. he never even makes any natural type of eye movement, right? Just bugged out the whole
It looks like one of those Muppet dudes with his mouth open like that with the flashlight in it.
time. If you've never noticed that, this mofo never ever blinks in this entire video until I'm pointing it out right now, you are never going to unsee it again going forward. I even gave my theories before on why I feel his eyes look so unnatural, and I did it in the most subtle way. And some people have commented that they believe there's some fake eye trickery underneath that mask. And trust me, I also really wanted to believe that this is the case, that there was an alternative to creating that white pupil effect while actually hiding the eyes with possibly fake ones, like through a see-through mask with realistic eyes painted.
On a side note, I do think it's smart of this guy to put that disclaimer on there, because this is one of those gray area channels that people might be like, I don't know about this. Maybe I should sue him. But he's got the disclaimer, so that might protect him.
On or something. But I did a little bit of research, and that actually would be highly unlikely, okay? Because this phenomenon, you know, the white pupil eye thing phenomenon, is caused by the infrared lights actually going into your pupil and bouncing back. And this is with actual human eyes. So you got glass eyes or even prosthetic eyes. They won't give the same effect. Now, here's something else I've noticed about those darn eyes that I've lost sleep over. So I want you to lose some sleep over as well. I'm finding it more and more eerie that this guy's eyes, not only do they never blink, they never relax or even squint, but that his iris and his pupil, they never move. They never shift. They're always stationary, right in the middle, just meaning he's never doing this.
Could be a distorted contact lens, Linda. You're right about that. Costume lenses. Why not? If I'm doing something like this, maybe I would do the same.
Nothing. Just smack dab in the middle. And I try to make sense of it. You know, maybe it's because his only source of light is that bite light in his mouth, and it's pitch black, so he's just wide-eyed like that. But I still feel you're gonna look around just a tad or something, squint a little, but he doesn't. Anyways, let's just leave it at that. Those eyes are damn odd, and you guys need to help me with this. I'm gonna leave you guys with something that I know a lot of you believe in, which I have always been skeptical of since the beginning, and that is that wrist tattoo. Okay, so first off, I feel we need to discard all this AI generated colors and stuff, and let's just stick with what the FBI gives us, and I do feel we'll be better off for it. Now, I've analyzed this supposed tattoo before in a past video, but even since then, you know, I've remained on the fence about it. I offered a guess that if it was a tattoo, it looked to me that it was the top part of Texas. But ever since then, I've only become more convinced that it's not a tattoo. And here is why, okay? So we can safely assume that this guy is not mixing and matching his gloves in terms of size. They're all coming from the same box. And he's wearing gloves that do appear just a tad larger than his hands and his fingers are, and possibly he's layering two gloves together. Okay, so in general, he does appear to have doubled up on everything that he's wearing to hide his frame, okay? Just look at this clip where his left hand is very active, fondling the bottom of the camera. You can see that the glove extends well beyond into his sweater sleeve. If they're the same size, then the right hand should be just as tucked under and as deep. Now, here's the frame of the tattoo that we've all seen. But have you seen this clip scrubbed slowly backwards and forward? Because that whole portion where the tattoo is supposed to be, from what I can see, is still the glove. And I'm convinced of it. And I'm not here to convince anybody else. Okay. I'm just here to point out what I see. So, however, you guys do need to know that I did very well in art class. And if you ask me, that is a form shadow. So I happen to believe that we're looking at just more glove. And even if you happen to believe that we are seeing his skin, I will say that
I don't know about this. Do you think it's really just a form shadow and not a tattoo? I don't know.
you are still looking at more form shadow on his skin. For me, at least. Not here to argue, just here to point things out. So go protect the ones that you love and love the ones that protect you.
So then, if people think it's gloves, then Nancy Grace got it very wrong, because she was the one blasting off about the tattoo, and I think then other people did too. But again, here's the thing about, even if it is a tattoo, I never thought that was going to catch him anyway. It doesn't narrow it down enough. Well, I don't know. They made it look like a tattoo on Nancy Grace's, so I don't know how they got it so wrong there, if it is not a tattoo in any way. There were people convinced before, oh yes, that's definitely going to be how you catch them. What party's that? Maybe it was Autumn. I don't remember who. I just thought it wasn't going to be enough to catch them, even if it was a tattoo, is what I had thought. Yeah, I proposed that it might be a fake tattoo as well. A party for Julie Bug, maybe, but not me. Oh, that party. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I might tell them that that person's not welcome. And say, if they don't like it, say, well, he should have thought of that before he tried to fuck with me. And so, oh, you're going to make a big deal out of it, Jared? I'm like, yeah, I will actually. And so, this is just the consequences of his actions. You're not going to shame me for giving him consequences for his actions, period. So we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind about it. But it's just ridiculous that that's what it comes down to. But that's what some people would say. Oh, no, you're going to give them consequences and then it's going to cause trouble. It's like, well, yeah. Yeah. Like, imagine that. Imagine that in the court of law. You're like, oh, my goodness. You're going to root them from their family to give them consequences? You're going to send them to jail and uproot their family? It's like, fuck yeah. That's what consequences are. Consequences are not going to be convenient. Consequences are not going to be a soft and gentle massage. Consequences are consequences when you fuck up enough. So, like, that's it. And again, if there's no consequences, all you have to do is to not fuck with me. You don't fuck with me, there's no consequences. It's that simple. And again, and I've done that before as well, where I used to just say, you know what, I'm going to let it go. And it kept on getting worse after I did. Because there was another birthday party I went to with them. And it was fine. They still tried to disrespect me and like get around the boundaries, but I got through it. But since I didn't cave, it just got worse later. It got worse later. So it makes me think, well, you know what? If me just trying to be the bigger person didn't work, it's time for the next step, perhaps. So we shall see. You know it, Songbits. But I'll walk you through it all. I'll give you through like what I see of it. It's still just obnoxious, though. It's a secret, D. because it really is a secret. Yeah, I've had to learn song bits. It's just, I also decided this, like, I shouldn't be the one that has to move around them and change my life because of them. I don't like that either, right? Why should I be the one that has to avoid the party because I want to stay like away from them? Shouldn't it be more like that person should be not allowed to come because they're the person that tried to mess things up? And if they say, "Oh no, you're going to cause a fuss like this, Jared," I'll say, "Well, yeah." And you can tell everyone why I'm making a fuss about it too. When they ask you about it, "Oh no, why doesn't he want him to come?" "Oh, well, he said he was mistreating his grandmother. He said that he's a loser. He said this, he says that." I'm like, that's why. That's why I'm not going to go. So everyone that would ever say that, that's what I would say to them. And yes, people, like the like button as well. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Heather says, some are criminals. I thought that of stalkers. They shouldn't be allowed to hurt my life. I would agree with that. I would agree. But anyway, that's really all I had here for the evening. So Song Bits and Julie and Maureen and Heather and Rooster. Autumn, D. Linda. Dana. Marina, who else? Autumn Elizabeth back there too. B, if B's still here. You got it, Teresa, Wendy, and Dee Dee. You got it, Heather. Amen to that, Maureen. Amen to that. You're in the same boat I am, Jared. I'm sorry. I just hope you don't lose your family like I did. Yeah, we will see how things go. I don't think I'd lose them all, but we'll see. Tina, you have a great night too. Make sure you like the video on your way out. Shadow says goodbye to you all too, and thanks for all the support and the hootie snacks too, of course. And yep, I'll be back again tomorrow night. Pamela, you have a great night. Double Linda, got double Linda action. Double Autumn action, double Julie action. Jackie, you have a great night as well, my dear. You got it, Marina. So, Marina and Zarina, farewell, everybody. Good night, good fight, as they say. Everyone have a good night.